And I'm gonna turn off the. Start the.
I'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Bolinas Community Public Utility District. All directors are present. Today is February the 28th, 2024. And with that, I'll go to item 3 on the agenda, which is community expression. Opportunity for members of the audience to address the board on matters which are not on the agenda and for which they can take no action, but for which we would entertain a brief discussion. Are we getting feedback or something?
Yeah, sorry, see.
Okay.
There's a hand up.
Okay, who has their hand up?
Hey, it's Rob Gailey.
Oh, okay. Jeannie, could you move one chair over? Thanks.
Sure.
I'm right in front of that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob. You just a community.
I just wanted to check in. It's been I think a couple of months since we talked about the Bolinas Y ecological restoration project and potential implications for traffic safety. I'm wondering if we've gotten any responses back. Just trying to keep abreast of what's going on.
I think we briefly discussed it at the last meeting, but Jennifer, is there anything new to report on that?
No, I don't have anything new.
Sorry, Rob, we had nothing new.
Okay, I guess I wasn't able to get to the last meeting, so okay,
Yeah.
thanks. I'll check
All right.
check the minutes.
Any
Yeah.
other community expression items? Yes,
Hi, I don't know if this is my mic working?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think this might be on the agenda, but in case or I'll just ask, is the drainage along Overlook on the agenda?
no, it is not.
Okay.
What would you like to address the board
I
about?
was just wondering, the last time I was at a meeting was years ago and I brought it up, but I was wondering if that was something that is being looked into as far as the drainage ditch that goes along Overlook being maintained and dug in properly again.
That's a county road, right? What's that?
I believe that's a county road, so that would be a county of Marin matter, is that right?
Yeah. Overlook is a county maintained road, so they actually are supposed to be taking care of the drainage, but sometimes BCPUD will offer some assistance.
Okay.
Is there a
Thanks.
particular block you have in mind?
Well, it's certainly, water doesn't flow at all right in front of my house, which is 375 between Alder and Poplar. So,
Between Alder and Poplar, okay.
yeah.
Pretty flat right there.
What's that?
Pretty flat right there.
Yeah, it is.
It's the.
Well, the ditch is also like completely, it's not even really a ditch anymore. It's like barely has a little bit of a slope in it. So, that's the issue. It's not so much that there isn't much of a grade on the street itself. It's more that the ditch is practically flat now. So,
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was going, we couldn't have our guys assess it and coordinate with the county. We've done that in the past.
okay,
All right,
thank you.
sure. Any other community expression items?
Me?
David?
I just wanted to ask the board to have a plan to deal with the eucalyptus growth and to publicize it to the town. Like, you know, the land trust does that at community meetings. But I think a lot of people are freaked out. By the eucalyptus and there has to be a plan. I know there's the Bolinas eucalyptus project.
Right.
But in my view, they're here to help you. Because BCPUD is the agency that represents the town
Yeah,
and has far more pull with the county than just another citizens group, which,
Sure.
you know, must be hundreds of citizen groups. So
I believe that Jennifer has been working with representatives of the county and also at PG&E, because there's actually 3 entities that are all involved, depending on where those trees are. So Jennifer, you want to give us sort of a thumbnail sketch of where we are with the trying to deal with the eucalyptus trees.
Are you gonna do that in the manager's report?
There you go. If you hang in there, David, you'll get it on the manager's report.
Mhm.
Oh, any other community expression items?
Okay, well,
None appearing, I'll go
you
on.
didn't, my request is that you advertise what your plan is to the town.
Okay, oh, why don't you let the manager give her report, and then depending on what she says, we can talk about what we can do to pass on that information, okay? All right, so that takes me to item 4, which is the manager's report and project updates.
Okay. The first item is an update on the status of the water supply. And there is a memo in your binders and up on the website. As of the end of January, we had received 18.93 inches of rain, which is slightly below average of 19.27 for that time of year. And then though by February 22nd, the rainfall totals had increased to where as of February 21st, I'm sorry, we had received 26.34 inches, which is slightly above the historic average for through the end of February, which is 24.56. So we are about 6 inches below average annual rainfall right now. And we do have about 2 to 5 inches of rain, depending on which forecast you're looking at in the next 10-day window. So I think we're likely to be approaching the annual average after the next 2 weeks of rainfall. And we're sort of, when you look at the models about being predicted, what type of, what amount of rain we're likely to get based on the rainfall progression analysis, it looks like it's anywhere between 31.8 and 34.5. So just on either side of the district average of 32.5. So what, I mean, obviously we'll just see what happens over the next 6 to 8 weeks, but it seems reason to be optimistic that we'll hit our average annual rainfall. Since the last board meeting, since January 16th and through this Monday, our water production has been averaging about 53,655 gallons per day, which is a big decrease as compared to the prior reporting period where we were producing more like 62,000 gallons a day. And that was largely because we had the plant off for multiple different days during various storm events. And so what we were doing was, producing a lot of water when conditions were good, and then having the plant off when we were having really turbid conditions in the creek. And water consumption similarly dropped to an average of about 55,000 gallons a day or 94 gallons a day per connection. And that's a drop from the prior period, which did include the Christmas and New Year's holidays. And so we were seeing a bump up in usage where consumption was averaging closer to 64,000 gallons a day, which is about 109 gallons a day per connection. So we've been able to, since we had that, delta between what we were producing and what we were consuming, basically we're able to manage that by supplying the water. We have about 800,000 gallons of water at most of the time in our treated water storage tanks. So we're able, when the plant is off, to be supplying water through the treated water storage tanks. Both of our reservoirs are still full and spilling, and the creek is flowing really well, with the estimates of creek flows are approaching 250,000 gallons a day. And so the creek's been flowing over both of the impoundment structures, and which means that we can't actually get a real-time measurement of actual creek flows, but the model has been very predictive. And so I think you're seeing that the flows now are approaching last year's spring high flows. Remember, last year was an above average rain year. So we've had 2 good rain years in a row. And we're still continuing to meet demand just by using water from the Arroyo Hondo Creek and not needing to go to the reservoirs. Turning to the update on our groundwater wells project, we have project status letters that were sent out by the county as we've been reporting the coastal development permits were submitted for both of the wells. And then we've been having a lot of, sort of internal meetings with our engineer and hydrogeologist and going over the project status letters and also meeting with the county. And, there's a lot of supplemental documentation that's been requested that's relatively straightforward to present. I think what is more complicated is the request for professional engineering or hydrologic study demonstrating that groundwater withdrawals will not have a direct or cumulative impact on coastal resources. So that's something that's far above and beyond what the State Water Board requires and what we've already submitted to the State Water Board. And some of those, some of the data that we submitted to the State Water Board will be applicable, but extra work is going to need to be done by our consulting hydrogeologist and to some extent also our engineer to produce the kind of technical report to meet that requirement. And we talked with the planner about this. This is all under the new LCP, right? The LCP that's only been in effect a couple of years. And so the planners themselves haven't had a lot of experience with implementing and administering it. They gave us sample studies that have been done in connection with a couple of other well projects in Marin County in the last couple of years. And so between analyzing that and talking with the planner and amongst our team, we believe we have a path forward to be able to submit a technical report that will satisfy that criteria, but it will add, anywhere, the rough estimate is about $12,000 to $18,000 to produce that report. And, the coastal permit process here is very expensive. The fees themselves were about $10,000 per application. The biological site assessment and other technical documents. I mean, right, we're definitely, incurring unbudgeted costs. And we will make an effort to recover those costs through the grant program that we're funding these projects through. And we've apprised the funding agency about this, about the fact of the additional costs. And we're eligible to apply, but they simply, they can't guarantee that we're going to be getting additional funding. But I wanted you to be aware that we are needing to do that. And we're needing to respond in short order on this to keep everything on track. Because as you know, there's currently a deadline at the end of this year to get the infrastructure installed. We've been told we can get an extension till June of 2025, which we're probably going to need to get. So we're on a tight time frame, and we're also doing a lot of coordination with the land trust because obviously they've got their project pending at that location. And one of the other comments that we got that pertain to that, well, we were a bit concerned about at first the comments from DPW about easement documents and driveway widths and whatnot. But we did meet with the DPW engineer, and he's willing to accept a letter from us explaining that we have a license agreement in place that gives us permission to use and access and maintain the well and install our facilities, and also that we're aware of the land trust project and working with them to ensure that the installation of our projects is compatible. He knows that, because of we're in all likelihood going to be installing the pipeline from the wellhead out down to Wharf Road inside a steel carrier pipe in order to that then with the construction being uncertain on the land trust project and still under development, it's then fully protected and can be constructed around. And that was satisfactory to DPW in that respect. So that was good news. We also have to do the biologists have to do some supplemental work as well about the wetland and or Isha buffer zone are nearby the resource recovery well. So, so there's a healthy chunk of additional documentation that we're working on and need to submit. The deadline to submit it, I think, is March 18th or 19th, and as we get closer, we may need to be asking for an extension of that, which the planner is willing to give, but we're trying to keep on this time frame so that we don't lose time on that, because she's got to go through it all, and then it will have to go through hearing and so forth. So any questions about that? Yeah.
Andrew?
Are we, or maybe we already have, requesting an extension, because they said that we need to submit the materials within 60 days, and that would be like mid-March.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Like we're trying to hit that deadline, but I suspect we're going to need to get an extension. We talked about it in turn, Georgia and I and our engineer and hydrogeologist. And we sort of thought we'd wait till we get a little bit closer to the deadline before making the request, but we're trying to minimize how long that request will, how long a period of extension we need to get. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to make sure that I hit everything there, yeah. So then going to the operations update, first thing I thought we would do is, Georgia has a update that she wants to give about some IT issues here for the office.
Yeah, so I prepared a memo that was in your materials. I don't want to go over it in great detail, that was more if you guys wanted to, kind of have that level of detail. But definitely since I've started here, there are some things that need to be upgraded. So for instance, as an example, we're still on like an Office 2013, which isn't supported by Microsoft anymore. And so I talked to Chris, who is our IT consultant, about that, and he was in agreement that we needed to upgrade all of that. So a lot of this is just in terms of just kind of basic needs. And I discussed much of this with the finance committee, which is Andrew and Kirsten, and with Jennifer. And I'm kind of thinking about this in two sort of tiers. One is sort of emergency upgrades that would happen now that would obviously impact the 2023-24 budget. And then kind of more comprehensive plans going forward. So again, this is, I need to have much more in-depth conversations with Chris about like, what is the long-term storage gonna look like? Because I think like the server, for instance, is kind of on its last days. And so, it's possible that some of this will get even bulkier. And I think some of that is just, letting you guys know what's happening. But the things that more impact you directly as directors are, I personally feel that it's important for everyone in the district, in the district operations to have emails. So one of the things is that the operators themselves do not have emails, and that is kind of, I feel like, low bar. They should have emails, especially as we move to their ability to collect data in the field and interact on like cloud-based Excel docs to input their data. So they don't really have the capability of doing that right now. And it's not easy to structure all of that when they don't have internal emails. And if we did kind of do workarounds, they wouldn't be as safe as far as security. And so I think that a pretty similar argument can be made on the level of the board directors too. It's just a lot easier to manage the kind of data sharing if you all had emails. The other thing I would just point out is that if you had, you have to share your personal emails because of the way it's structured right now. I would contend that that's not really appropriate because when you leave, there's no way to sort of, for us as an operation to manage that. And for instance, shut down your email. And make sure that you're not receiving materials. Another way that it comes up is around public record requests. It's really more appropriate for us to have that all in-house. For, especially when you're talking about you guys having to do, substantial work on some of these ad hoc committees where you don't have to have public meetings for all of the work that you do. All of that work should really be internal, so that we can manage it and, have an appropriate record management. So that's what I would, it's sort of my recommendation is that we would, fulfill a more comprehensive program, exactly what like all the bells and whistles would look like. You'll see that I'm like talking about some supplementary software that I think is kind of integral to the functioning of the district. I also want to kind of experiment with some software that I feel like will make some of the operations more efficient, especially within the office. But that's stuff that I'm still kind of playing around with. But anyways, so this is kind of the intent of this memo, is just to kind of let you guys know. And again, I have it on for study and information, but I guess I was thinking that if you guys want to discuss now or at some later point about whether you're on board, you can see I highlighted just in terms of that additional annual cost to the district for you guys to each have your own emails is basically $750 per year. So
Not per person, but.
no, per year. And I mean, it's a little bit annoying
It's
and
broken out into the 5.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So, because effectively as a small operation, we essentially we don't have a lot of flexibility. So we essentially have to have, our 12 plus blah, blah, blah. Essentially, these are exchange emails that get, that are managed by our IT consultant. So there's not a lot of flexibility of giving you guys like lower tier, licenses. We just have to get like, if we need to do all of the upgrades that ensure that we're not still, chugging along on Office 2013, then everybody needs to move up into that category. So yeah, unfortunately, it's a little bit more expensive, but I really think that it's very much worth it.
Do you need a decision from the board or a consensus to proceed in some way, or is this just for our?
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably what I'd suggest, because I think it's more, appropriate for the finance committee to really be like the one who's the people that are deciding this, but it would probably be appropriate to sort of have a vote from the board that says, okay, we are in support or not in support of this, and relay that information to the finance committee, which the finance committee is here. So we can just take that.
Grace,
Yeah, I think it's money well spent, for sure, and very inexpensive, really. My question was, one of the things that we've noticed a lot at school is text just works so much better than email. I mean, email's great for the record keeping, but in terms of just the quick communication, I'm wondering if there's any way to, I mean, not Slack, because it's probably really expensive, but is there some?
Oh, yeah, so
Text
actually, so I mean, I didn't go
component
into
to
that,
this.
but part of my reason for wanting to get the operators on with Microsoft 365 licenses is that there are chat features embedded within like Teams
Okay.
and
I'm
apps.
sure there is.
Yes,
Yeah.
so basically all of our discussions right now and actually our like kind of data report that is, again, it's just sort of an alert that we have in the mornings when the operators collect all of the kind of central data. We do all of that through iMessage, which again, I think for records keeping isn't really appropriate again. So part of another kind of main reason to make sure that all of the operators have emails is to get us off of iMessage and get us into a chat.
Yeah.
That's run by those same, interfacing with those same emails.
Sounds great.
Jeannie,
Yeah, so I just I have a question that might be very naive, and that is, in the planning for the new building, does any of what you're talking about need to be incorporated, i.e. into the plans? Like, yes, we're upgrading and we will need a more secure place for X, Y, or Z in the plans? Just as a matter of finance committee looking at future costs.
Yeah, no, not really. And if anything, it's the opposite. Right now, we have actual physical structures that are housed up there. And so, you know, if we basically move over to cloud-based storage and cloud-based security, then that is not, you know, that infrastructure isn't needed in-house. And I think just to reiterate, I mean, like, this is all stuff that Chris is very, I would say, like, eager to move forward with. He feels like it's.
Well, it seems like this is just something that the board as a whole should recommend to the finance committee to include in your budgeting, assuming that we're all in agreement with their proposal. Would you agree with that too?
Yes, I like the proposal. I like your sort of staged planning and trial, trying things out. Have you tried anything new yet, or are you just looking at what's available?
No, I'm kind of looking at what's available. I'm likely to pilot the Otter. So Jennifer, you're not here next meeting, right?
Here, next meeting, not April.
Oh, not April. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking in April, there's this looming date where I'm actually going to be running the meeting. I am likely to pilot Otter. I mean, because a big part of one of the apps that I mentioned is basically a note-taking app, because right now we spend a lot of time not me, but Jennifer and Belle have spent a lot of their time writing the minutes and compiling all of that important information. And so I would definitely like to test out its capabilities within sort of the complicated nature of this meeting. I've already tested it out in kind of smaller meetings where everybody has, is in a meeting where everyone has their own interface, which is kind of not as challenging for the software, right? Because basically what the software does is it tags all of the different voices and is able to, and once you say, oh, this is, Jack speaking, it will recognize that voice throughout. So obviously you can imagine if there's one microphone over there and there's a lot of people talking in like an ambient area, like it may not work as well, even though it's like past my first tests of it. But yeah, again, I kind of want to probably introduce it in a meeting that is, and be really explicit about, okay, this is something that's happening. I know that some people are kind of like afraid of these sorts of programs, so I just want to be sensitive to that.
Yeah, I guess my concern about something like Otter, which I've never used and I don't know anything about, is having a sort of third-party software monitoring our meetings, especially if it's a closed session meeting. So I don't know if we would necessarily want to use that if the transcription is being done,
Yep.
in the cloud or at some other company, who knows where it is. And as far as the email addresses go, I don't like using my personal email address and having that as part of the public record. So I would definitely be in favor of having a private email address.
Yeah, that's definitely something I thought about in terms of the Otter AI and like all of those types of large language programs, because they are all interfacing with some cloud and, like a data repository where they're just collecting all of this massive data. But I think then that's actually why I would want to use it in a public meeting.
Mhm.
I would never use it and it's really about where you have to take these painstaking minutes to then provide to the public. So I think in that particular case, then, that obviously is less. I mean, you're already publicizing all of that data, so I think it's less of a concern, and it's also where the time sink really exists. So, yeah, but I would definitely be very careful and judicious about my own use of it in terms of, I mean, it'd be great to just like use it in every meeting,
Sure.
but I think, yeah, you need to be careful.
What do you think, Grace? Are you?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and Andrew, you're on the.
I support it. I think the Otter is something to test. I think the Copilot for Microsoft is something to test. I don't really know what that means, but I think you should just get it and try it out. So.
And do we have numbers against those if we were to actually implement it? Yeah,
Sorry, against which?
against the Otter.
Yeah, you can see I broke it down as an experimental program, and then I think I included it in the just to be conservative, I included it in sort of, okay, yes, I loved it, and then it would move forward in 2024. And in the limited program, it's like, yes, I liked it, but not enough that I would insist that everyone gets it. Yes, I loved it, and other people should get it too. And again, this is obviously, I don't know yet, but.
All right, well, I think, you have direction from the board then to, include this when we have the finance committee meet and to include budgeting for this proposal. Sounds like that's a consensus of the board.
Well, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer.
Okay, I am gonna do general operations update, but I wanna focus for a minute first on the section 13267 order that we received from the Regional Water Quality Control Board that pertains to our wastewater treatment facility. And, I've been reporting on this forever. And this is finally the technical order that we've gotten. And, we have been negotiating with them over kind of the scope and what we're going to be required to do. And so I wanted to just sort of walk through that to make sure you're aware of it. We didn't see anything surprising in the groundwater monitoring well work plan and report. That's due at the end of 2024. And then we're going to be installing new groundwater monitoring wells out in the spray disposal field because the regional board wants to have a better sort of characterization of the groundwater in the area. And 90 days later, we'll have to do a report. What was a little bit raised our eyebrows was the enhanced monitoring section. It's quite an amp up of the amount, the frequency and extent of monitoring that we're going to be needing to do at the groundwater wells, and we're thinking that could even be costing as much as we costed it out. It'll probably cost between $15,000 to $20,000 a year, and so that's one we've requested to have a meeting with the regulators about this to see if we can get some flexibility around that and not have to do that kind of monitoring for indefinitely, or even we're going to try to argue that 1 year of that should be sufficient to characterize the groundwater. And then our consulting engineer says that it's more typical to be on a quarterly monitoring of groundwater monitoring wells rather than monthly. So we'll be trying to get that reduced as part of this too. But so that was not part of our budget as far as looking at this project in terms of what we've already known we're facing. So that's an additional fairly significant cost. And then there's the facility upgrade plan requirement with the ultimate deadline in 2028. And where the purpose is for the district to determine how to operate our facility in compliance with the applicable permits during 25 to 50 year return annual rainfall events, and also to look at trying to see if we can offer to add additional connections to the system, and if so, where. And then what kind of upgrades we would need to do to be addressing the system vulnerabilities, including vulnerability to climate change. And a lot of this was talked about with the regulators along the way. The first milestone is the end of 2026, when we need to submit a need for project analysis, and then in 2027, an analysis of alternatives. And this was all, if you remember the prior meetings when we went through all of this, our anticipation is that the groundwater monitoring plan and installation, we're probably looking at least $60,000. And then for the facility upgrade plan, about $250,000. And so the thing that I think was a little surprising to us was the specificity and extent of the climate change issues that need to be analyzed. And so, and also they surprisingly roped in other portions of the of the sewer system, not just the treatment facility, because this is only for the permit that pertains to the treatment facility. So we've also asked to talk with the regulators about that, the extent of that effort and seeking probably more time on the schedule that's been given to extend it out by about 4 or 5 months each year to allow us some more time to be able to complete that analysis. And that's kind of the high level review. I think, did you have any questions about it? No?
So I do,
Yeah.
Jennifer, and that is, well, a couple of things. Is there any way to see what the additional monitoring and maybe constituents that they are now requiring?
It's in the technical order.
Okay,
Yeah.
so is that, and that's on the website?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other question is there any thought about the impact of the big septic system that's over at the Teixeira Ranch now impacting what might be found in, on the BPUD sewer treatment plant?
I did leave that to the consulting engineers we've gotten some direction from the regional board. They want an upgradient groundwater well.
Okay,
And so, that would be somewhere on the property, to the north of
right.
the, probably a northernmost point in the Sprayfield area.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
All right.
Okay.
continue.
But just to want to, this is, as you know, and I've been talking about that, this is going to be a significant effort for the district over the next 10 years. So this is just the beginning.
Question,
Mhm.
are there any associated grants with these new requirements that we might be eligible for that you know of?
Well, I think that the grants we're really going to want to be looking for pertain to the actual upgrades themselves, which our engineer is extremely, given extremely bit broad range of $3 to $8 million likely to cost. So that obviously will absolutely be seeking grant funding for. And if there's anything that, we'll be talking to the regulators again and I think that we can, the groundwater monitoring plan and well installation, we should be able to cover, we're spreading out the cost of the 250,000 for the facility upgrade plan, 225 to 250. We have budgeted out, at least in the capital improvement plan, to it be about $75,000 a year, with one of them, rounding up on one of the years, so that we're spreading it out. And the regulators were very amenable to that. They initially wanted this on a much faster time frame. And I said, we just can't do it. We have 163 connections and we can't pull together those kinds of studies at those kind of costs in that time frame. So they allowed us to spread it out over the 5 years. And they also previously were going to require that the upgrades be completed 5 years after that. And now what the order says that they anticipate it could take as much as 5 years for the upgrade to be implemented. Because when we were speaking with them, the regulator said, we don't want to put a hard deadline on you because we know that this is going to be very expensive and it may take more time to put together how it can be funded. So, yeah.
Jeannie?
What are we talking about in terms of upgrading of the system? Are we talking about the piping? Are we talking about the pumps downtown? Are we talking about the?
It's mainly the treatment
lines?
facility.
So, and what are they, what is being considered in terms of improvements?
The basic suite of potential considerations range from disinfecting prior to spray disposal, adding additional storage at the treatment ponds, and or putting some sort of roof over, or cover over one or more of the ponds, and also incorporating recycled water into, a recycled water treatment unit so that we could provide recycled water potentially to Mesa Park, which was a long ago plan that the district wanted to do, but wasn't able to at the time. So it might be a combination of all of those and maybe other things that become viable along the way.
But that will all be, we'll be seeing the information at these meetings and at the, you know, we'll be apprised in
Yeah.
newsletters, et cetera, but it all sounds really good. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, also just on the regulatory front, I think I mentioned at last month's meeting that there was a new order about technical reporting on the water system side. And I just put the copy of that technical order in your binders. I talked about it before. It's a reporting essentially that we're basically already doing. But a lot of other water systems may not have been, and they segregated out some material into two separate reports, but I just thought you'd like to see the technical order itself. I had a meeting today with FEMA and Cal OES, the Office of Emergency Services, and this is to close out last winter's declared disaster storm event issues. And they've obligated the funding for the expenses that we incurred in removing trees and debris from the Arroyo Hondo access road and also the bike path and related areas down in the Ute Grove. And so this is just sort of another step along the way in the process. And I understand it now goes to Cal OES to actually send out the money. But that was a meeting that we had today. Obviously, on terms of storms, we also had major storms this month. It was interesting. We had numerous weather briefings with the County Office of Emergency Management and National Weather Service about this. And the briefings turned out to, you know, correct that it would be a major storm event, but there was a lot more rain in the forecast and a lot less wind. We've all concurred that the forecast was basically off by serious magnitude off in terms of the amount of rain, and we got a lot less, and the winds had been forecasted about 50 and they were over 100. Bolinas and other communities were coastal communities particularly hard hit, but apparently in Marin the damage has not been enough to trigger a disaster declaration. So there won't be any kind of emergency hazard funding that I'm aware of. We did have trees down across the Arroyo Hondo access road, most of which our staff was able to clear. We have one that will probably require a contractor to, you know, a tree contractor to come in and deal with it. And so we'll reach out to the national park about that and get into that process, working with them to get that done. Obviously, and as David alluded, that more trees came down in the eucalyptus grove. We have some across the bike path that we are just sort of trying to get an overall inventory of everything. As I've been reporting for many months now, we've been working with PG&E and the county to identify the respective responsibility around trees, the trees that are in the county right of way, like the one that fell across the Lima Bolinas Road. That was a county tree. Most of the trees along the Lima Bolinas Road are in the county right of way. And the PG&E cleaned that up. And because it was in a county right of way, they have a contract with the county where they also remove all the wood. This is something I just learned recently when PG&E comes and abates hazards, they are legally entitled to leave the wood on the property owner's property, except if it's in a public right of way. Then, like with the county, they have the contract to then remove the wood. So that's why that wood went away. And then there's also, I haven't seen it myself. I haven't been down there recently, but I understand from the fire chief that one or more of the trees from the north side of Mesa Road, private property side, that came down, across Mesa Road and onto our property, knocking down more trees, but also those trees were in the county right of way. So their PG&E is there lately cleaning up the wood from those trees, because if they again originate in a county right of way, then PG&E will remove the wood. And so I talked to them about, well, is there funding available for you know, the situation where, I mean, we're grateful to you for, you know, getting these trees down to eliminate hazards, but then is there financial assistance available, you know, to help us with the wood management? And so I put in your binders some materials that where there is a financial program we can apply to. And today we met with the fire district about it and are going to submit a joint grant application to that program to be able to, we'll do it as whatever we can that is compatible with that grant to try to, the fire chief is primarily concerned about doing what we can to eliminate anything that poses a fire hazard, obviously. So, and we also, as I reported last month, we applied jointly with the fire district for grant to CAL FIRE for similar purpose. And so we're, you know, looking out as well as we can for grant funding opportunities. We think eventually that George, based on what George Krakauer's said to me, that the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority, which is the newly created countywide joint powers authority, you know, they are funding some major project, including eucalyptus removal outside of the coastal zone. You might have heard about them. Some of them have been in the paper recently. But as we understand it from George, the holdup about funding anything in the coastal zone is the coastal permitting aspect of it. And so the MWPA has submitted a kind of comprehensive, I haven't seen it myself, this I'm relaying what George has told me, is that they asked all the respective fire districts in the coastal zone to identify projects and areas where they think work needs to be done. And then that's been all submitted as a comprehensive package to get permitted, so that then as their funding becomes available, the permitting will have been taken care of. That's my understanding of how that's going. But if you really want, I mean, I could ask George to come to a meeting and present or get more information from you on that. But that's my general understanding.
All right.
So those are still subject to all the county permitting, coastal permits. That's not an emergency tree removal program. That's just more about funding. Still need to do all the same permitting.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
basically it's hazard mitigation. It's like, yeah,
But that wouldn't grant us emergency status to get the trees removed.
we already tried that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So David, having heard Jennifer's report, does that answer some of your questions about
I
what
have
the
some more
plan is?
about trees, but I have
Excuse
some
me?
more on this.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
sorry, let her finish then, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, sorry. I wanted to mention also that with regard to the Marin Water Project that we were looking at the outset of the year, that project's had, that Marin Water's changing a little bit. I've alluded to that in the past, and I can't, I've been trying to get the specifics, but Marin Water is changing the way that they're approaching that project a little bit. Remember, this is the project to obtain trees with the root balls on them to use in the salmon habitat restoration project in Lagunitas Creek. And we met extensively with Marin Water, and they do have grant funding, but now the last I heard from our representative or contact there is they decided that rather than have Marin Water contract expressly for the trees, they're putting out an RFP for a restoration contractor and putting the tree, obtaining the trees as under the scope of work for the contractor. And I'm supposed to be getting more information from Marin Water about this after they interview contractors and know how the project will proceed. They told me that they would try to have a preference for trees obtained, off the BCPUD property, but they couldn't guarantee that that would be the case. And as you know, there's concerns about that project happening, very much at all in advance of the Bolinas eucalyptus project, because downing the trees with the root balls could render nearby trees vulnerable. That would need to be analyzed. And so again, that going back a few months now, but in talking with John Cozy and others from the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project, that, that in an ideal world, this could happen in a kind of combined way where Marin Water could come in, get trees out that they want for their project, and then the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project would carry on with then that 100 trees removed through that grant funding, thereby reducing the cost of the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project. But that's going to be very challenging to try to coordinate timing wise. It's not impossible, but that's going to be challenging, and I'm trying to get more information from Marin Water about exactly where things stand on their project, because my understanding is they want to harvest trees either this year or in 2025. This year's obviously, well, again, I mean, I'm saying too soon because of the concern of any kind of destabilizing other trees. And we had looked in particular areas of the grove to try to identify where those trees could be obtained that would pose the least impact to other trees, but then Marin Water kind of changed the way they were approaching the project. So I think it's going to be worth at our next meeting with the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project to talk about this issue and how it could be coordinated, or how we might, whether it's even possible to do one coastal permit to say this is a combined project whereby, these trees would come out one way and the other. But I think it's going to be very hard because of the timing issues for the Marin Water Project. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any sense of why Marin Water is kind of changing their project pace and idea so much? I feel I'm hesitant to continue sinking our time in with them because they're so skittish with their approach.
Yeah, I tried to have a definitive statement for you by tonight. I mean, I tried, but they're not. It's not an evasiveness. It's just it's just busyness and hard to get on calendars. I don't know, but I agree with you. It's kind of like time to make a decision about that.
Mhm.
And we because we're sort of coordinating, the biologists that are working for Bolinas Eucalyptus Project, and us, we had our coordinated meeting. We're not sinking a lot of money into a useless for nothing. We're sort of waiting now overall for the monarch evaluation. And as the Bolinas Eucalyptus group has updated us that they've brought in another biologist, Stu Weiss from Creekside Science, a very highly respected butterfly expert, and WRA is basically Stu Weiss is doing the monarch evaluation, as I understand it, and then WRA will be incorporating that into the overall biological site assessment. And as the update email from Janice Tweedy that's in your binders is indicating, is that they anticipate his study being completed sometime, I think probably in the next few weeks, and then getting the biological site assessment finished. I talked with WRA earlier today about that, and they are coordinating that they affirmed that that's what they're doing, is waiting for that, and they're we're very enthusiastic about Dr. Weiss's participation and involvement, and he's highly respected. And so then, the next step after that, as Janice, said in her email, would be to be approaching the county, and the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project is then wanting to move forward, hand in hand with our district and the fire district on this project for the community. So that's the update. So, and we have been reporting on it every month on these things to the you know, I don't know if there's something more that you think that we should be doing, you know, in addition to updating the community at these meetings. And I think that the Bolinas Eucalyptus Project's been updating the community at the civic group meetings, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
They have, but I think the town needs to know what's going on.
but I mean, I've been what in addition to reporting at the BCPUD meetings, is there something that would be helpful that that in terms of what would be the way that you're thinking would be helpful then?
Again, the hearsay, studying the hearsay news, or attend one of those civic meetings, like go and trust and tell people what's happening. Stu Weiss has already produced a draft report, which I was forced to comment on. Except, but,
Did you like it?
it
That-
generally,
you know,
he's
that was-
all for removing all those eucalyptus trees. Yes, in his mind is. I don't know, it's kind of foggy, like, and the same with WRA, they're talking about mitigation for removing these trees, and how can there be mitigation if they're just gonna all fall down by themselves? Well, anyway, so Stu Weiss is fully aware of public safety issue, and he seemed to be saying that, yeah, these trees need to go. The question is, does there need to be a replacement somewhere else in the eucalyptus grove for monarchs? You know, there are places where they have roosted in the past that are on the other side of the grove from Mesa Road. And so the question is, you know, what would be necessary to improve those sites? In terms of like the water district, there's already 40 trees lying on the ground. They could come and decide which ones might suit their purpose.
I know, I should have, thank you, I forgot to mention that, I did alert Marin Water to that, and he said that he's gonna try to come out and look at that and see if there was any way that they would be able to use the trees that are already down, so I have asked about that. I don't know.
Everybody's trying to be reasonable. so.
Yeah, and it's also, there's a very specific size, they need to be a specific diameter and whatnot, so that was also challenging. And we can't have them take down any of the trees, unfortunately, that are any of the roadside trees, because they need to pull, you know, they need to get the root ball out, and we can't upend the road, you know, so we have had to be looking at trees that are, you know, kind of 20 feet back, of which there are plenty, but that, I'm just saying we couldn't do roadside trees, but we can look for, you know, try to get others, and we certainly identified plenty of them that would be worthwhile. And so then the issue is just whether or not, you know, Marin Water is going to be able to, the timing of their project can work for us and them. So it's complicated too.
I just
Yeah.
wondered if there is any hint that they could find another eucalyptus grove and, you know, turn around and say, oh, well, we don't really need Bolinas, we're going to this other coastal community. I mean, are they solid with us that way?
No, it's not a commit, no.
Right,
Mm-mm.
right.
No, they've even talked about just purchasing the wood from a tree, you know, like a
Right,
kind of tree farm, you know, because then they're very empathetic to the fact that they would like to, they know we've got this issue, they'd like to have this project be a way to help a fellow water district. But it within reason, kind of.
Right,
And the permitting and then access issues and things make it challenging.
Which would be so
So,
anywhere along the coast.
It's a work in progress is what it is.
Right.
Yeah,
But
I think it's, that seems like there has to be a summit meeting amongst the
Let's
parties.
have Putin
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, so.
And PG&E has committed that there's, if you look at trees with red dots and with white X's on them that are roadside trees and slightly in, all those are PG&E trees that have been identified for removal, and they've put in the permit applications for those. And that's, at least that's what I've been told. And so, and they added trees. We met with them twice, I think, like once in September and in December, and they added more trees to their scope of responsibility. Because the trees that are within a certain distance of their lines, they then take responsibility for, and it has to be a PG&E approved contractor to do the work, like you, so we will be seeing, I think there's, I want to say about 17 trees, roadside trees that would be coming out from PG&E. And I believe others from the county as well. And then, that's what we've been trying to coordinate, is all the respective responsibility there.
And
Yeah.
just to add too, I mean, there were trees that were felled that were imminent danger, that were under emergency, like
Yeah,
taken down. So it's, you
Right.
know, I mean, I think that people were aware of some of that work. So it's kind of like a tiered approach to the trees there. So,
yeah, during these storms and afterwards, PG&E took down trees. And they came back, and the arborists came back and looked and said, and added more. I mean, I think they've been back 2 or 3 times looking at more and putting them down.
and those, did not obviously require coastal permitting. And the sort of guidelines for when they would remove those trees is if they look like they're leaning and they're imminently endangering their lines. Yeah, their infrastructure or their lines,
so is there, so to speak to David's point and to Andrew's point, is there any way to get sort of a little bit of a coherent story, even though we see all of these crazy pieces, you know, like you'd have a little gear going here and a gear going, so that people could understand, the public could understand better that things are happening, that we see along the road, to give people the confidence that, yeah, there are a lot of agencies really trying to work together. And, you know, not everybody's gonna come to that meeting on the one hand, but at least it might be an attempt to help people feel more confident about what's being done.
How does the board feel about some kind of a report to the community just on what's happening with the trees, or should we just include it when we publish the minutes, or you want to do something extra about it? It's sort of a work in progress, so it's hard to.
Because we have been I mean, I guess I feel like, because we talk about it almost every board meeting, and then it's in the minute, I mean, it's this art of our public meeting to tell
Right.
the public
We
what's
are.
going on. Yeah, and that's why I was trying to ask, like, what else would be helpful?
Yeah.
If people aren't coming here to hear it from us directly,
Right.
then and then you said the hearsay may be publishing, the hearsay used to publish our minutes regularly.
Right.
And then since they're on the website, they haven't been doing that as much.
I think a monthly update in the hearsay would be really helpful. I mean, there are 20 of us here, including our Zoom attendees. I don't know how many people of the public read through the minutes. I have no idea. Maybe you have a count from the website, or maybe that could be figured out, how many people download the minutes once they're published. But I think a lot of people read the hearsay. So if there was a little quick summary every month on an issue such as this, I think that would be really effective. I'm willing to write that, or work with the GM. on it.
So
I mean, I would suggest potentially that because the fire district also works on this issue, that would be a joint report that comes from both of us to essentially let the community know, as Dave is requesting, that this is not like we're just ignoring this issue and we are actively working on it. Again, it's complicated, and I don't know how, like, if you really say everything that's going on,
Go link
how
here, link
legible
there.
that report
Yeah.
is, but, I think it's important to just kind of let the community know.
Yeah.
I mean, and just to kind of comment, I mean, on the school board, we deal with this same issue where we discuss things in a meeting.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it's incumbent on us as an organization to realize that communication is a big part of our job. And I know it can be super frustrating when you're like working so hard and you know, and then people are like, why didn't you talk about that? But it's also like you kind of have a sense of what the hot button issues are, you know, especially when it's like we're losing power, people's lives are really affected by that eucalyptus grove right now. And so I do think it's kind of incumbent on us to make a little bit of an extra effort to just kind of, you know, highlight this one issue. And as again, especially since it also is like a multi agency issue that both the fire district and BPUD are working on. Anyway.
And broader issues too, because more trees, you know, from across the street are problematic, as well as the terrace trees, and like there's a
Yeah.
comprehensive approach going
Mhm,
on, you
mhm.
know, not, you know, from trees that are, PG&E's been everywhere in town in multiple different locations, and in coordinating with the fire district and those respective property owners, in addition to coordinating with us as the owner of the on the, you know, south side of Mesa Road.
Mhm.
Kevin, do you want to take a shot at trying to write up some kind of a summary that? I mean, I didn't know how serious you were about the.
I wouldn't offer if I wasn't serious, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would.
Okay, so once you do that, maybe have it reviewed by the office staff to make sure you got it right or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, great.
That's good.
All right, Jenny?
Okay.
Oh, one thing that I find really has been helpful since COVID and the Zoom meetings is that they're recorded. And it seems rather than duplicating an in-depth report, to put a little notice out that says, here's what's happening, and if you want more information, we covered this at the meeting and you can find it in so minute. And then have those, excuse me, recordings be easy for people to get to. So you don't have to really ferret it out and going through the website, but.
Oh yeah, actually, Jenny, just to like dovetail off what you're saying, one of the things that I was talking, like the uses of the Otter AI that I was talking about is actually that there are timestamps, right? So you can imagine that on the minutes, you're highlighting that, and then in the video, you could even potentially tag it so that somebody could be like, oh, I'm interested in this. And they go directly to, you know,
That'd
a
be-
portion of
That's a
the
good
video.
idea.
That'd be really good, and I know people do give up. I tend to just really go in there and find stuff just because I'm that kind of person. But it is sometimes frustrating if it's not easy, and if you did say a little thing, because it doesn't seem like duplicating all of the conversation is a good use of time. So to just say, okay, here's what we're doing now on this, and you can find out the full report by going to a website, to this particular part of our website, because sometimes you go to the website and it's really hard to get to where it is.
Yeah.
And I just end up, like at school, I end up going to Johanna and saying, Johanna, can you tell me where to find this? And she will give it to me. But you don't want to have people doing that all through town, having to call and get that information. So I think that's great if that could be incorporated in this new system, and then make it easy for people to get their own information, and then you don't have to write that whole thing.
No, but if you do have a little monthly,
Yeah,
I'm not picturing a long piece of yours, but.
Yeah.
This
just
is
say this is what we're
where
doing,
we're at now.
Yeah.
then-
and if you want more
Couple of
information.
Summaries with references to more detail.
Yeah, where it is and
Yeah.
the time stamp or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Jennifer, I don't remember all the parties, but back last year, we got a lot of reports from arborists. I think it was Tom Gammon, Ben Anderson, Ray Moritz from Urban Forestry. And I remember seeing some like site plans of almost like an inventory of all the trees. have we been kind of keeping track of those trees as like, oh, that one's gone and that one was, let's say that one was encompassed by our arborist report that said this one can be topped or trimmed, but it's not an issue. Like, are we kind of going back to those reports, making sure that what a professional said is true? Because there might be trees that have fallen from storms that someone said are not an issue or a threat. Because I'm starting to just think like maybe we need to just write a letter to the county and say, you know, we are doing this due diligence and having these reports done, but it seems like, and there's also the Bolinas Eucalyptus project that's doing these reports, and at every turn there's a requirement for a new report or a new biologist or arborist, and it's kind of amounting to more cost and time. And we don't necessarily have to say we need these things removed, but we could tell them like this is becoming a problem, and every storm we have there is serious issue. Because my concern is like, let's say that we had the gusto to remove all the trees, we had a blank check to remove them, we would still need to do all the permits and get the reports. And it may be that this thing is environmentally sensitive habitat area that we cannot change. Are we responsible for trees that fall if we can't take them down because of the species of plant or animal is protected?
Yeah, it falls on somebody.
But if we don't have the power to get a permit or pursue removal because they're protected, then is BPUD as an agency responsible for that death or injury or? Because then we're hamstrung and we don't have the ability to make changes, right?
If the county or the coastal commission won't give us a permit to remove the trees, then, but we're saying we don't want the trees, we don't want to be responsible for the trees, then how are we still responsible for them?
Yeah, do we get to shift the liability to the coastal commission? I doubt that.
I mean, I just remember that, I mean, things are moving along on all of this,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I know it's frustrating, but it just takes, it's actually moving fairly quickly, believe it or not. I mean, because it was just in August that the board endorsed the Bolinas Eucalyptus
Yeah.
project, and we have all of the reports. We commissioned a separate report. Yes, I am following up on that. That's all my meetings between the fire department and PG&E and the county is going, you know, it is looking exactly at all those trees. You know, we've taken the ones down here, we're getting the ones down at the tank site. And then the county took down one of the trees before the storm, and then the one next to it is the one that fell. And I understand from George today, they're coming back soon to take that one down. And so, yes, we are doing that. And then if, as I understand Janice's email from the Bolinas Eucalyptus project, they're expecting them to be submitting the coastal permit applications this spring. And so then we're gonna know a lot more, before, I mean, I don't think we're gonna know what, you know, till the biological site assessment is completed with the monarch habitat evaluation. And then that'll, I presumably be defining the scope of the project and which trees would be coming down and if there are some that can't come down. I don't know.
Okay, PG&E and the county PG&E is interested in the trees that are gonna impact power lines. So along the road, and county is gonna interested in the ones in their right of way. Okay, but those three foresters reports said that when you take down these trees, it makes its neighbors vulnerable, which has been demonstrated pretty graphically. And so I think the reason there has to be a summit is that, I mean, you're gonna spend how many millions of dollars on the bike path? Those trees are gonna become more vulnerable as PG&E and the county takes down their trees.
Could make that argument to the county with the Bolinas Eucalyptus project. I mean, that's an argument that can be made. That's basically gonna be the summit meeting about this, because the BPUD's endorsed that project, and we will be, and the fire department and the eucalyptus group will be going together in a, united front about that.
Yeah,
And that's an argument that can be used in favor of, why the other trees need to come down.
well, also, if you're gonna spend all this money on the bike path. I don't know, you have to put some signs out there, use at your own risk or something.
Yeah.
Um,
And also, I think we're overlooking, when we talk about it, and maybe this is getting farther along the path. Maybe, maybe get there, is that there are a lot of other things growing, in that eucalyptus grove that should be there. And will be enhanced because they'll have more sunlight, et cetera, more room to grow. So, restoration should really be part of the discussion always. I mean, at least it should be mentioned. That we're not saying cut down all the trees and we'll see you later.
The Bolinas Eucalyptus Project has an extensive restoration plan. Yeah.
Right. So just to keep bringing that up, because you just get this picture, as we know, when the eucalyptus fairies come to the meeting, they present a picture of complete baldness of an environment once the ukes are gone, and we know that that's not the case. I'm just pointing out that that needs to be part of anything we bring up in the public, in a public discussion or public presentation.
Yeah, okay, well. To complicate
Go ahead.
matters, 3 of the trees that are now covering or falling across the bike path, monarchs roosted in. So they're gone. And, actually, they fell down after Stu Weiss went in there and did his evaluation, so. Anyway, there has to be some kind of summit meeting and.
That's no matter.
Anyway, it sounds like you guys are,
It's happening. All right, I think we should wrap up the discussion about the trees.
Okay.
It's an ongoing subject for us and,
thank you.
stay tuned. All right, thanks, Dan.
I do.
Jennifer, you want to move on to the next?
Yeah,
item?
I think I'm almost done. Let's see, Aqua JPIA, our insurance authority, was going to be coming out to do defensive driver training and a site visit in early February. I had reported that at the January meeting, and of course it had to be rescheduled because of the storms and power outages. So we're now looking at next month, March 21st for that. On overall operations, the staff's doing a great job, as I was mentioning, about managing water production, really maximizing our production when we have breaks in the rain and being able to then have the plant off when we don't. The staff installed a repair of the raw water line from the Arroyo Hondo as to where it enters into the treatment plant, that they did a great job on. That was a challenging repair that they were able to handle, so that was really great. Also had a leak repair on Sunday morning on Olima Bolinas Road, just right about between Susie Buell's driveway and the intersection, that the guys were also able to handle within a couple of hours, so that was really good. With regard to, let's see, I went over the sewer order already. I'm trying to be quick because I know there's people here for other items. Again, on the sewer system, on the Canyon Road project, I think the operations committee is going to be convening again soon to continue work on that project. With regard to the bike path project, we loaded onto the website and in your materials, we have concept drawings, an updated construction cost estimate and project schedule, and then a staff recommendation to consider the appointment of an ad hoc committee just in case we're not able to give feedback on a quick enough timeline for the engineers. The schedule is pretty tight, which anticipates that on March 15th, we'll have the 30% construction drawings. One thing I need to say, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself, is that we had a meeting with the county planner, Georgia and I, and our engineer from BKF Engineers. Was that just on Monday? I think we met with the county to present the concept drawings to ensure that the county is still viewing the project as repair and maintenance. And so, and fundamentally, the concept for the path is 5 feet wide, 3 feet of class 2 AB material and 3 inches of asphalt with about a 6-inch native material shoulder on either side. And then the existing culverts can be replaced. And so we're going to, they can't be upsized, but they can be replaced. And so we confirmed that. There were a few questions that the planner raised with the engineer, and he's going to circle back with the biologists on that. So we might have a couple more details to work out.
I think you accidentally said 3 feet. but
Oh,
you-
did I?
Yeah,
Oh,
3 inches.
oh yeah. Oh my God. Thank you.
3
Yes,
inches
yeah.
of what?
3 inches of AB. Thank you, George.
I thought that was
Did I really say
pretty
that?
fast.
Okay, okay. All right, I'm sorry. Thank
No
you.
problem.
3 inches of AB road base and then 3 inches of asphalt. And then the shoulder on either side. So that's the basic design of the path itself. And the construction estimate of cost is down quite a bit because this is a modified design than what, you know, was considered much earlier on in the process when the engineers didn't really understand the kind of constraints that we would be under not to enlarge the size of the path and et cetera. So that's good news that the cost came down. It's still above the overall budget, and we're looking at phasing, as we've talked about before, that we would be looking at going from the Overlook and Mesa Road intersection to kind of the lab building or to the entrance of the Eucalyptus Grove, and looking at from the intersection with Mesa and Olima Bolinas Road down as the first phase. If we don't have the funds to, you know, pay, we won't know for sure what anything's going to cost till we put it out to bid. But so the concept drawings are in your binders, and the probable cost estimate. And then with the schedule roughly being that we would expect the 30% construction documents that the board would be able to review at the next board meeting. And then the 75% construction drawings would be in early April, and the board would be reviewing those at the April board meeting, and then the 100% construction documents reviewed and presented to the board at the main meeting. But the concern, I think, where we could see the utility of having an ad hoc committee of the board for this is during that review period prior to the board meeting, if there was any kind of substantive back and forth, if the board, or maybe by looking at the concept design, maybe you don't feel it's necessary, but we thought it could be useful to have a committee for this purpose if needed to get director input. Yeah.
2.5 questions. Does the operations committee, or have they in the past been involved with this project?
No, but
Okay,
yeah.
because I was just, when you said ad hoc, I was
Well,
like,
ad
oh,
hoc
bounce.
isn't subject to the
Yeah,
Brown Act,
but
and we
I was-
don't have to notice the meetings and all. That could be a more nimble committee if it's only for the purpose of the bike path.
I think if you do that, you have to get Don Smith on this thing, right? Because he's spent so much of his life on the bike path
Well, maybe
project.
he doesn't want.
Yeah, no, we were thinking of current directors,
Okay.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
not to.
and then my last question is, does BKF feel confident that a contractor that would be doing this work, their cost estimate would be similar to an engineer's cost estimate? Because usually
Yeah, no, I
there's
mean,
some,
there's no promises in that
Yeah.
regard. We won't really know the cost until we put it out to bid.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to that, we're still got the grant money, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that base, which is 78, like 80K or something. like
It's 355,000.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's, I was just a little bit off. So the many millions that David referred to.
But you were off in the good direction.
Yeah.
So, and what we're thinking is that, it looks like it's going to be less expensive given the sort of reduced scope of the project. But still 385, did you say, is not sufficient? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, well, we have 355,000 roughly in grant money. We have about 90 or plus thousand in match funds that have been raised either privately or from the
Right.
district. And so the overall budget is about 445,
Okay.
and the probable cost estimate for the whole thing came in at 515. 515, yeah.
So it's 65K.
And so, but again,
Mhm.
that number is yeah, yeah, it's we really won't know until we put it out to bid, and we're gonna be we would be bidding it with them, asking them to do bid alternatives in phases so that we can then see what could be afforded to be done.
Good.
Alright.
So I have a couple, mine's maybe more granular, whether it's more appropriate for now, or whether you want to put this committee together, in which case I'm happy to share my comments, but a couple of just big picture. It looks like it's 27% of the consultant fee against the construction estimate. That seems kind of high. So I'm wondering why that.
I mean, the 111,000.
Yeah,
That's not their number, that's just the maximum number, that a maximum amount that can be utilized on the project per the terms of the grant. We don't expect it to get that high.
okay, yeah, because I would have expected 18 to 25. I would never see it at 25, so that's
Yeah.
27. Then there's a pretty healthy contingency of 30% in
Yeah.
that.
I think that's
number.
good. I actually think the bids are gonna come in higher than
Mhm.
this personally, yeah.
Yeah, what else? And then I think you had pricing, does it include permits? Fees?
No, that's part of the 111. We don't
Okay.
have to get permits, a coastal permit, because the county has decided that it's repair and maintenance
Right.
under the existing permit, but we are paying, so it's 75,000 for the engineering, and it's probably 10 to 15 for the biological site assessment. Those are the main costs that we've incurred. In addition, with the earlier cost estimate that was prepared by BKF was about $6,000. And that's when it was looking like the path would cost, over 800,000 to do the whole thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And then it looks like there is a pricing exercise within the 30% CD, but I didn't see a pricing exercise. 75% or 100% CD.
You mean to be giving us
Yeah.
there is on the schedule, there's an engineer's estimate that's included. I can't remember at what stage, but there's yeah, cost opinion with 100% drawings. That'll be, the cost opinion there will be the official engineer's estimate that would go out in the bid documents. Is that what you were asking, or am I answering the wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm looking for, like, is there a fee covered within that? Right, to
You're saying-
observe and like look at the 75% or the 100% CD bid. Do they already have fees in there to review that 100% CD?
You mean with that, you mean there,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's included in the scope of work, yeah,
Okay.
the overall engagement with BKF.
And then I think you had a really good observation on the soil off-haul, 43,000.
Yeah, so I was looking at their estimates here. They're asking us, or they're estimating that we'll be off-hauling 215 cubic yards of soil, so at $43,000 total. I'm just wondering where that soil is going and if we could possibly use it elsewhere on our property, maybe, shoring up some berms around the
Yeah.
storage ponds, or I don't know. Something.
I don't think so. The staff doesn't, I mean, the staff isn't, when I asked them about being in favor of removing it.
The staff said they
yeah,
would be in
'cause-
favor of
yeah.
removing, okay.
It's not really competent material that you could use for, it'll be a lot of, grass and vegetation that has been encroaching, and that's my understanding is it's not really usable material.
Okay.
I mean, we'll revisit that issue and make sure.
Cause I assume they're hauling it over the hill somewhere, which
Mhm.
sounds expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Couldn't it go to resource recovery when they're ready to take some?
No, they don't take soil.
And you're saying it's vegetation. Anyway, yeah,
okay.
we'll
Well,
see, we'll see.
sounds like you've already looked into it, so thanks.
Any other questions about this proposal?
Are you looking for an approval on this tonight, Jennifer? Are you looking for us to vote on this and to give them a green light or something, or?
Well, no, just for the ad hoc committees, the main thing is if we could have a couple volunteers to be on the committee, or if you don't think it's necessary, if you think, Georgia, what do you think? I mean, they're aligned, the construction drawings are gonna be being presented, we worked out the schedule to get it during the board meetings.
I mean, I think that personally, it doesn't hurt. We
Mhm.
don't have to call that
Mhm.
ad hoc committee forward. It would just be kind of if things get a little wonky,
Mhm.
and then we would have that in place, so we wouldn't have to, incur delays where we're having to wait for a meeting.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think we could have sort of like, recognize that we're, trying to respect the ad hoc committee's time and not call you forward unless necessary or something.
Anyone interested in doing that?
I'm interested.
Thank you.
I'll join Kevin.
Huh?
I'll join Kevin.
Mhm.
There we go.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
all right, there you go.
Thank you.
As needed, huh?
As needed.
All right,
Um,
want to continue, Jennifer?
Sorry, this is taking so long. On SB 1383, so I'm really happy to report that our waiver application was granted. Of course, nothing's easy because it turns out that I need to resubmit it. Because what happened was I applied, and you probably read in the documents when I said we're already subscribed to the service. We're not intending to change anything. We just want to be relieved of reporting and enforcement. And I had a call with Cal Recycle about that. And she was confused, and I said, well, look, we believe in the spirit of this law. We're absolutely fine with, getting food waste diverted into the greenway stream. We're not going to change that. We've had 3 container service for years. The main thing we want to do is be out of it as a district having to report and enforce about it. And so she had to then go meet with her superiors and then came back. We had another call today. She said, we've decided that you just need to resubmit to be exempt from everything, because I was trying to make it clear that we're still trying to comply. She said, because if you don't get the exemption from everything, then we would still have to require you to enforce. And so I said, okay, so, yeah, and so I'm gonna resubmit, the waiver application. I'm gonna do that on Friday, so, it's a little frustrating
Yeah.
that
All
we
you have to
didn't,
do is just check the box to everything instead of
I know.
something.
yeah.
That always bothers me though. Did you notice that their waiver letter is undated? Unless I.
Oh, well, it was emailed to me, but, yeah, I mean, yeah, no, I did actually
It helps
don't
if
notice
they're
it.
giving you an official waiver
Yeah.
that they, yeah.
No, well, yeah, good point. I actually didn't notice that. There was a cover email, so I know the date that it came
Okay,
in,
okay.
but, yeah.
Well, you find the date show.
All right.
So what else would we be exempt from? I'm confused, other than enforcement, what else would we now be exempt from?
Well, pretty much we're officially not then required to enforce SB 1383
Yeah,
in our jurisdiction, except for the main thing that we would still have to enforce would be an edible food recovery program. And that's when you have either a tier 1 or tier 2 commercial generator. And in Bolinas, we have 1 tier 2 generator, and that's the Bolinas School, because they have a cafeteria on site. there's size limits for most of these things, like grocery stores and supermarkets and all have to be, and like we actually even went down and measured John's store to make sure it was under the square footage. But with the school, there's no limitation on size. So we met with Leo and others at the school and ascertained that they basically don't have any recoverable edible food that could be donated. There's and we also don't have an official food recovery organization in Bolinas that they could contract with. And so Cal Recycles agreed that we don't have to enforce that, but that if we should ever have an edible food recovery program that could be implemented in Bolinas, they would hold us to that. So that is what I think is the main thing that we would still be subject to. But
Okay.
that whole ordinance and everything we went through to implement that would not be required.
Great,
And we should have, so at least we have the waiver now.
good.
So then also I want to make everybody aware, and we'll be putting stuff out to the community on this, as the fire district will as well, is that the County Office of Emergency Management is going to be having a alert Marin test on March 23rd at 10 a.m. There's information in your binders, and as I said, they've asked us to publish some news releases about this. I'm sure you're probably going to be hearing it from lots of different places, but it'll be in the form of a text or call or email to everybody that is registered on alertmarin.org. And so it's all part of the county's effort to enhance their emergency planning. Let's see if that, I think the final thing that I can tell you is pleased to report that the litigation between AMJT Capital, the BCPUD, and the Coastal Commission has been resolved. And so a settlement has been entered into, and we understand that at the March 18th hearing, I'm sorry, March 15th hearing before the Coastal Commission, that then there'll be a reconsideration of the permit issued to AMJT Capital, and then that project can proceed. So that's good news.
It sure is.
And then one final thing, which is the county is actively evaluating the wooden seawall at the base of Surfers Overlook. I've previously reported, we met with them and brought it to their attention. We've introduced them to the engineers at Gannett Fleming, who have done the underlying assessment. And there's a county engineer that's been assigned to that, and they're actively planning a repair project, from what I understand.
Really, from
Yeah.
the bottom?
The bottom seawall, just a replacement in kind,
Uh-huh.
nothing's done yet, but they are, you might remember that the board was presented with, well, should Gannett Fleming do some supplementary analysis? And the Save Terrace Avenue Committee and the board all said, well, wait a minute, it's time to bring the county in on this. It's their seawall after all. And so that was, we followed up on that, and I think they are agreeing that it's appropriate to do some remedial work, and they're trying to set a scope of work and figure out what they're gonna do. So. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Move on to item 5. Request for financial relief from a quarterly metered water bill pursuant to BCPUD Resolution 553 for the property at 73 Brighton Avenue. G. Bell and C. Emmons, are you present?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're here. Hi.
Hi. So we do have in our binders copies of the correspondence, and we also can see your historical usage.
Hmm.
The meter, and it's obvious that you had a really bad leak.
Yeah.
So we have different policies depending on the nature of the leak and whether they were discernible, if someone had been around to see them or not. And you want to just briefly tell us how you discovered this leak?
Sure. We were out of the house at the time, and I think Bell called to notify us. Discernible. I wonder about that. It seems to have been
somewhat catastrophic leak. It was in the pipe connecting our house to the utility system, and unfortunately under a sidewalk. So and also it was in the middle of a storm at the time. Yeah. So all those conditions made it actually pretty difficult to figure out the nature of the leak, whether it was upstream or downstream of the meter. But we did immediately call a plumber and start the necessary work. Of course, turned off or I guess Blake turned off the valve to the house, and then replaced the lateral within just a few days with a new 1-inch copper. I think, just to be totally honest, we did know in the previous quarterly bill that utilization had gone up a little, but we never suspected the lateral because there's no evidence of that. And I thought the most likely culprit was our drip irrigation system. So I went through and tried to replace any leaks I could find and did replace a number of leaking valves. So I had some inkling that utilization had gone up, but not any inkling of the root cause. Anyway, let me know if I can provide more info.
All right. So you're saying that the leak occurred at a time when there was rain or a lot of standing water, so that it wasn't apparent that there was additional water coming from the leak?
Yeah, no, it was in the middle of one of the torrential rains. I think it was on the 19th. I go to my email. And it made it almost, yeah, I mean, there would have been no evidence that the leak was happening just because there was standing water and rain everywhere.
Right, right. Now let me go around the table, see if anybody has any questions or comments about your request. Generally, we forgive blind leaks that would not otherwise be discoverable. Or up to 90% of the bill. Because we still have to process that water and it costs us some money just to create potable water, even though it wasn't your fault. But it's a district expense, so
Sure.
we have a policy to relieve up to 90%, but let me get a feeling from the board on how they feel about this. Grace, I'll start with you at this end.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the big leak was, I'm just, you know, it was raining, it was under the sidewalk. I guess, you know, the water usage starting to go up in September. I appreciate the fact that, you know, there was attention to all the irrigation system, and I guess this is one of the things that we find over and over and over again is that one of the most frequent places where we lose water, people lose water, is with drip irrigation systems. And the best way around that, if you're going to have one, is to have somebody really go around and look at it carefully on a regular basis. And I appreciate it that you just did that in September, but it might be, you know, to put in the tickler file, like, we're going to do this every however often, because that's where water gets lost so often. So
yeah,
just note to self.
Yeah.
Andrew?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that the September was like of the summer and you were just using more water and kind of just like the
It's a
general
lot more.
district
Yeah.
trend. But yeah, I mean, I just generally just don't really support drip irrigation, so that's my opinion on that. But I do understand that your leak was kind of blind and subterranean, so I'm kind of inclined to be more forgiving.
Sure, I mean, I would follow what Andrew has just said, but if you look at year 23 versus year 2020, there was 3,400 cubic. And 3 years later, there's 2,900. So there's something going on in September. And yes, there was a big jump between June and September of this year. Pretty significant. So, and then to go up to the December usage was, I can't even do the percentage. So I understand accidents happening, but I also feel like there needs to be some administrative costs that need to be carried over, and so you're saying 90%, you know.
That's what we've done on blind leaks, right?
It's
Yeah.
90% of the amount of the bill attributable to the leak. So they still pay for their
Mhm.
historic average water use. And then 90%, well, depending on what percentage you forgive, up to 90%, so that there would still be average bill plus 10% of the amount for the water loss.
Right. We used to grant it all. Lyndon, when he was on the board, pointed out that the district has a basic cost of just, like you say, the administrative costs, which we don't want to have to eat. So that's why we changed it to 90.
90%.
What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I calculated how much water we're actually talking about here because I think cubic feet is a little hard to understand for a lot of people.
Yeah.
If we're talking gallons here, it looks like it was about 114,000 gallons over your average quarterly consumption. So, that's. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was
Oh.
just wondering about the regular
Okay, so,
consumption.
I think that's more than. I guess what I'm getting at is, I don't know how to determine what was leaking in your irrigation system versus what was leaking under your sidewalk. Because that's a lot of water. That's, enough water to provide our whole town for a couple days.
No, I agree. It's highly regrettable. I have no idea of estimating, but my guess, look, it was an old 3/4 inch completely corroded pipe that effectively was turned on for some period of time. And that was invisible to us because it was under a sidewalk and raining hard at the time. So you could probably calculate how long it would take, given the average water pressure, to generate that size of a leak. It may not be that long, I don't know. But I think the loss attributable to that pipe is going to be much larger than incidental loss attributable to a few missing valves in the drip irrigation system. But it's up for you to, I'm grateful for any relief. Your policy of not effectively having folks subsidize the raw cost you have for water is sensible. So 90% at max sounds great. I think we're on the hook for the new water meter as well, because we went up to 1 inch. So I'm just, whatever's normal and customary is great by us. We're just seeking some relief because we couldn't have, we couldn't have discovered this earlier than we did, unfortunately.
I really sympathize with that. I think we could all imagine being in your shoes of having a leak under a sidewalk in the middle of a rainstorm and not knowing until much later. So, but it's the irrigation part that as a policy, as BCPUD, we don't offer relief for leaks with irrigation systems. I think that's written into our resolution that we're talking about here tonight. So
that sounds like a good policy. I'm comfortable if you just make a reasonable guess. All I can tell you is what I did. Maybe to be a little more specific, we're talking about drip by drip leaks that I fixed. I went through and we inherited this drip irrigation system, and I appreciate the perspective that maybe no one should be using them. But
When was that turned off? Do you know?
Well, when the rain started, when was it? Like probably October, something like that. Yeah.
So the leaks that,
Let me see if there's a motion from someone on the board to make a proposal.
Sorry, just a
Go ahead.
clarifying point, can I understand?
Sure.
How was this leak discovered? I'm trying to remember, it was.
During the meter reading.
It was during.
Yeah,
the
so they
meter
didn't
reading.
know about it at all. It was
Got it.
just that we saw this extraordinary high number and we double checked it. And then that's what he's referring to, that the Bell called and said, we think you have a huge leak at your property. And they responded right away.
What period was that?
do we
Got it,
do-
thank you.
was that a quarterly water meter read?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
do we just check meters 4 times a year, or is it monthly during drought only?
Yeah, monthly during drought only. Yeah.
I
And-
think we should do the normal procedure.
Which would be the 90%?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
So-
you couldn't find this leak.
Yeah.
one more question,
Or
Jennifer.
separate out the irrigation.
Well, is it possible, don't we know generally how much water we're supplying to each sort of neighborhood in Bolinas, like downtown, Little Mesa? Don't we know how much water is going there no, we don't separate it that way?
No. Each customer is
I guess it's just based on customer data,
Mhm.
right? That's how we know.
Yeah,
So it's not really possible to figure out when this leak started exactly. Is there a way to?
No,
Yeah,
I mean,
really? Sure.
no,
It's
you know,
all based
unless,
on meter readings.
yeah, unless and until we upgrade those meters, or, you know, we've talked about almost every meeting that people can buy a device for $200 called a flume device that they can put on their water line at the meter, and that would send you an alert. There's things that people can do, and a lot of people in town have installed those, and they've prevented a lot of water losses.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Do you have a well, maybe it's in the minutes, I can find the recommendation, but that seems like a great idea.
We're happy to, if you want to call, we can talk about it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody did mention, I thought this was an interesting idea, that in this type of situation where you guys are granting this relief, that you would, as a stipulation, make sure that the person gets a flume device. I think that's like, I mean, I have no idea if you're allowed to do that, but I would, I think that's kind of an
Yeah.
interesting thought.
Well, we always recommend it. I don't think that we can,
Maybe we can,
Approve it contingent on them.
you know.
well, maybe we can amend, I think that's a good idea. We could amend resolution 553, which is the, quarterly metered water relief to customers to,
Yeah, I mean,
to
obviously
make that a
that's up for
stipulation.
you guys to discuss, but
Yeah,
I
I
just
think that's a
thought
good idea.
somebody mentioned it, and I think, you know, when you're, I mean, I don't know, I think there's probably some consideration, and it's probably like a more in-depth conversation
Yeah.
about modifying it, but I personally, just on like a, you know, oh, that's interesting.
Mhm. All right, well,
The
we
question of whether you could detect it upstream is kind of interesting. If we use the same water that would feed the whole town for 2 days, that means we doubled the consumption of water over some period of time, and you don't have a way of detecting that?
No, not if it is probably happening over time, and it was like an incremental amount, like the average amount. If what Kevin was giving me was about 1,200 gallons a day, if it was steadily leaking, that's not an amount that we would even kind of notice. I mean, what we would notice is if consumption suddenly doubled, we would be all over town trying to find out what was going on in that kind
Still
of.
wouldn't have seen it probably regrettably in this case, while it was raining, but okay. Anyway, whatever consideration you can provide is great. Well, I think there's a variety of products, not just the one you mentioned, and some of them are a lot more expensive. So I wouldn't over-engineer the solution for people. They might choose something else, but we'd love to fix the root cause here. So thanks for anything you can do. We appreciate it.
So do we want to entertain Georgia's suggestion as part of this, or should we keep that as a separate?
I'd like that to be a separate discussion, but I think it's a worthy discussion.
Right, okay, we could have that agenda essentially.
I think that would be
Yeah,
more
I think that's a good
appropriate.
idea.
Okay. So let's just deal then with this application for some relief. Is there a motion from anyone on the board to grant some relief, and what would you propose? Anyone?
I would move that we propose the 90% relief for this instance.
Oh, okay,
Historically standard.
yeah, so the historical usage, and then they would pay 10% of the increase and be forgiven 90%, right?
Correct.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
I'm a little uncomfortable with that just because there is admitted some irrigation leaking that was a part of this. And as a policy, we don't offer relief for irrigation, and, he says it was a small amount. We just don't have the data to really, to say one way or another. So I would sort of be inclined to drop it down to 80%, recognizing that some of that was for irrigation. That would be my inclination.
All right, well, let me ask the people who made the motions seconded, whether you'd be open to amending the motion to accommodate that or not.
Yeah, I don't really like arbitrary numbers like that, but I understand it.
Well, I mean, the resolution that we're beholden to here gives us great discretion in what what kind of relief we offer.
No,
And I think, we're a community public utility district, and we're acting as such, I don't think PG&E would be so gracious if you
If you left your heater on. while
if you
you're
left your heater
vacation.
on while you're out of town. I don't think they'd be offering you any relief. So it's in the spirit of community that we've been having this discussion. So
It's true.
So what would that look like, Kevin? How would you recommend?
like I say, I
You
was,
said 80%.
I said
Forgive
80%,
me.
just, and it is a bit of an arbitrary number, but it's just recognizing the fact that there were irrigation leaks. We, as a board, recommend that people don't use automatic irrigation systems. And as a policy, we don't offer any discounts or relief if there is an irrigation leak. So, based on that, I think 90% should be.
So basically what you're doing is you're projecting a potential 10% attributable to the irrigation system.
Yeah.
And not forgiving that 10%.
Yeah.
Jennifer has her hand up.
I just wanted to point out, I think the homeowners said they turned off the irrigation system in October, and that was the beginning of the quarter. That's at issue here.
Okay.
So that, and I don't know if you guys remember what, I thought I heard you say that, but maybe I'm misremembering.
It's a wild guess. I mean, honestly, a lot of this is undecidable. So, 10%, it's reasonable. We turned it off. I mean, we try not to use much water. I'm horrified at how much we've wasted, or the accident wasted. I don't know exactly when. But certainly by the time the weather cooled and the rain started, it would have been off. We use it as little as we can.
All right, well, let me see what we can get from the board on that. So let me go back around. Grace, was this originally your motion?
No.
Andrew's. So what do you think about the modification that Kevin is proposing? Are you open to it? You want to leave it alone, or?
I mean, I'm open to it. It just doesn't seem like rooted in any historical precedent for the board. I mean, would we grant the 90% if this happened in a drought? Or would this be a different conversation?
It would be a different conversation, because then you would have been able to see the water surfacing if someone had been there.
Yeah.
So this is truly a blind leak, as from what I can tell.
I think I still feel like the 90% is the way to go.
Oh, okay, and do you feel
I
like
do
it?
too, honestly.
So I guess you can vote yea or nay, depending on how you.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, so we're gonna vote on the motion, which is to forgive the 90%. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, did you vote? Oh, yeah, three yeas, one nay, and I'm waiting.
I'm conflicted.
Did you
Wait, one get conflicted.
No.
Still thinking.
Yeah, no, I think I'm conflicted because I hear
Yeah.
what you're saying.
I know.
So, we have some precedent around irrigation. And I hear we have some precedent around the 90%. And I also think, we need to be able to cover our costs. And these are areas where I think we could be recouping some more money. So I will agree to the 90% now, but I would like to look at amending maybe the policy that we already have in place.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I think everybody agrees.
so can we put that on the agenda then for the next meeting?
Mhm.
As a potential, we're proposing actually to amend the resolution to include
Yes.
that condition. Yeah,
It might be good to put some language, some potential language around that you'd like to see, so that we have something to bounce off of it.
I think the language is already in the resolution about the fact that we have discretion over what percentage, 90% isn't set in stone. That's just.
Yeah.
Sorry, what, that's the max we can offer, but I think we have discretion over what.
Yeah.
We want to share.
well, I think we were talking about George's
Oh,
suggestion.
yeah, no, I definitely like to
Yeah,
talk about that,
no,
about
that's-
the matter of fund, yeah.
Yeah,
Stipulated.
and that would be added to our resolution,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what I was suggesting would be the agendized item.
Yeah.
Shutting the door after the horse is locked.
Well, it is, except it saves the next horse, so.
Yeah, it'll happen again.
And remembering that we did, that the monitoring was going on monthly under drought conditions, and that was very useful, but here we don't have
Right.
that information, so you're sort of making it quote unquote blindly, though I hear you have it's a good discussion. Is there, I think with the devices, like recommending for more and more people, or maybe more strongly than just recommending, that you will have, you'll be able to get at that information that we don't, that you don't have
Mhm.
right now. So it sounds like you really have a solution, which is the best solution, rather than sort of trying to figure out, well, what percentage should we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so, So that vote was for
No, I think
48,
I said yes.
Okay.
4 yes and 1 no, is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You said yes, but yeah. All right, so you'll get an amended bill for
Okay.
the adjusted price, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We appreciate the thoughtful discussion and the consideration.
Sure. Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna sign off.
all right, I'm gonna go on to item 6. This is another request for financial relief from a water bill pursuant to resolution 553 to the property at 375 Overlook. Moses Bergson. Hey, Moses. So.
Everybody,
Hi, we also have in our binders an email from you talking about the leak. And you've just heard the discussion that we had with the other customer.
I did.
And is there something that you want to tell us basically about why you think you're entitled to some relief?
So the leak was brought to my attention from Bell. And it was due to after the meter was read and they saw that the numbers were crazy, much like the previous people. And we looked around for any kind of visible leaks and there were none showing. There was no irrigation going. We don't have any irrigation systems. And then it turned out that the culprit was a leaking toilet in the rental unit. And as soon as we turned that toilet off right away, had the meter reread a couple of times and to confirm that that was in fact what the leak was, where the leak was happening. And I ordered a new toilet right away and had it installed, and that definitely confirmed that that was the culprit. So we had no way of knowing this leak was happening, and it was unfortunate, and I'm requesting relief because the bill is astronomical. So
I guess the question would be if Don Smith were sitting on the board now today, the first question he would ask is why were the people who were living there not aware that the toilet was leaking?
I think they didn't know. I think it was, I can't answer that actually because I'm not them, but they said, oh, when I contacted them, they said, oh, maybe it's the toilet because I did notice it was running.
Oh.
It was pretty vague and they're in and out of town. And so I can't speak for them, unfortunately.
Oh. Yeah, this is one of those where we're not quite as sympathetic, I must tell you. Because generally, if there are people living in the house and they have to be aware when the toilet is running, assuming that they're near it occasionally. But of course, if they're gone for days at a time, then nobody knows.
Yeah, they work all day. Both of them work all day. Yeah, that's I can't really speak for them because not them, but I do understand your position. And I think that if they knew that they're really good about letting me know when there's issues like any kind of maintenance or any kind of appliance issues or things like that. And they didn't tell me anything about this, so I think it's safe to assume they weren't aware of it as a problem, and so that's why they didn't bring it to my attention. Had they brought it to my attention, I would have acted as quickly as I acted when I did find out about this. I mean, I had a new toilet ordered and installed within days of finding out. So
All right, well, let me get a feeling from the board. I'll start at the other end now. What do you say, Kevin?
Oh, yeah, like you say, let sympathy on this one from me. I mean, once again, looking at the data here, all the data we have, this is, I could be wrong here, but I think it's over 1,000 gallons a day that we're talking about over 3 months. I just find it hard to believe that that much water was going down the toilet without anybody noticing. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of sympathy here for this customer. I mean, we live in a water poor town and we have to watch our water use. So, and that includes tenants, visitors, guests, homeowners, everybody. So, That's my point of view.
Okay, so are you inclined not to offer any reduction at all then in the price or a smaller percent? What's your inclination?
I would go, yeah, no relief. That would be my inclination.
Okay.
What would Don?
Well, go ahead, Jen.
Well, there has been historically in the binders, a separate, at the end of the binders, there was a history of the leak relief decisions.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that that's been uploaded to the shared drive, actually realizing now as
You see that.
talking about it.
Way back.
Yeah,
And it hasn't been updated recently, but my memory serves that leak relief for toilet leaks are typically 25 to 50%, depending on the circumstances. And where there was really unawareness, but in a circumstance where the board feels it should be aware, you get a 50% relief, and if there was, you know, a lot more culpability, you know, something where something should have been noticed, then 25%. That's my memory. But is that leak relief history document in there in your binder, Jack? I don't think it's been updated in a while.
Yeah, I have one in the back of my binder
Mhm.
that goes back to
But it says blind, oh, here's toilet.
right, there are toilet leaks. 25% is generally what the board was doing.
Yeah,
This is 2018.
Does it show the amounts of
Seven.
water or?
Yeah, good question.
You know, this chart doesn't show the amount of water lost. It has the
Seems like they should be.
reason and the decision.
Okay.
So
Seems like they should be
And how long it's
inversely
not for.
related, right? The more water lost, the less likely people want to offer relief.
uh-huh. Well, they pretty much are just either blind leaks or toilet leaks.
Okay.
So, but the toilet leaks all seem to be around 25%.
Would it also, I mean, make a difference considering the leak or the I don't know how to phrase it, but it was over a long period of time, right? Between the previous reading and the reading that showed how much water had been used because of the leak, that it was not like a, you know, it's not like a faucet was left on and able to kind of notice that immediately. If it's a slow, relatively quiet leak over the course of 3 months, you know, maybe it's not as noticeable. Also, historically, our water use is really, really low. So I would ask that the board take that into account.
Well, we can see your record.
I don't know if it's really, really low
Well,
compared to just what we saw on the others, you know. I
Yeah,
mean, the last reading was 2,600 cubic feet, you know, the prior reading, we were just looking at from the other applicant, they were down to 300,
It's been climbing for the last
right?
2 years.
So this is now 15,000,
Wow.
18.
Yeah, I know I know that
Cubic
one was
feet.
incredibly high. For
and
sure.
I don't know how to.
It's 1,500 gallons per day is what was used that quarter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right, well,
For 3 months, yeah.
For 3 months,
That's
yeah.
what they'd be saying every day over 3 months, you know, over 1,000 gallons was going down the toilet without anybody noticing.
yeah.
I think that's more than just a slow leak. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a plumber, so I don't know how.
Well, and they're all pretty much the same. Once we've
Yeah.
learned is that when there's a leaking toilet, it's just running 24 hours a day.
Right.
Yeah,
So, well, let me keep going around. What do you think, Kirsten? You have any thoughts on?
other than what I've asked, in terms
Well,
of Don.
Kevin said that you not to give any relief because that's how he feels about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between the 0 to 25% because they already acknowledged that they were aware that there was a leak, but they didn't bring it to their landlord's attention. So
Okay,
they knew that there was a leak, which makes me inclined to say, I don't think we need to give some.
okay, let me keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I sympathize with Moses, but the situation is kind of is a bad one. I think the art of living in Bolinas, there has to be a little bit more attention to our water and our use and our footprint. And so I think to not notice the leaking toilet for 90 days is pretty egregious. I would be willing to do the 25% if that's kind of a precedent, but I would also be fine with no relief. I'm sorry that that's financial burden.
Grace, what do you say?
I'd do the 25%.
Uh-huh.
I think it's still a hefty. Moses and the tenants will still be left with a hefty sum to come up with.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think that we do have a press, you know, this happens periodically, toilets leak. Yes, it should have been caught. I would assume that from now on, the tenants will never, ever not notice a toilet leak again.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with the 25%.
Okay. I must say, I'm inclined to agree with Grace also, but I don't know if there's 3 votes on the board for that, so. I'm getting a feeling that this side is not too inclined to give any relief, and Andrew, you're sort of right on the cusp. So, you want to talk about a little more or reconsider, or should I just call the vote? What do you want to do?
We could do 20% to try to bring the precedent down a bit.
Would you go for 20%?
I would, yeah.
Oh, there you go. Would you live with the 20? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about that? All right, sounds like we have a consensus. Would you agree to that, Jim? Okay, so it sounds like there's a consensus to do a 20% reduction, or is it? That's just reduced at 20%, right? Okay, so can I get a motion then to that effect?
Sorry, are we talking about reducing it 20% or reduce or
But
an 80% reduction?
no, a
No.
20% reduction.
And remember that it comes off the highest tier
Off the
first,
highest end of the tier.
So-
Right,
you know,
right.
that,
Because
so.
the first X gallons are billed at so much and the next X gallons are billed at a higher rate and a higher rate. So it comes off the top, the
Yeah.
most expensive, yeah. So instead of giving a 25% reduction off the top, it'd be a 20% reduction.
Mhm.
So that's what the motion would be.
Okay,
Okay, so somebody want to?
sorry, I thought we were going all the way down to 25% earlier.
No.
No,
No,
you're saying this is a 75% reduction, and now we're talking about a,
No.
No.
We were talking about a 25%.
right, okay, I had it backwards then.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
So 20% is actually going the wrong way.
No,
It's
25%
Relief,
Yeah,
relief, relief.
I know,
So,
Versus 25.
okay, verse 25, okay.
so
all
we'll
right.
take 20% off of the top tier.
Yeah.
costs, Right, and.
Right, he's gonna have to pay 80%.
Okay, yeah, sorry,
80%.
sorry, math.
So you're on the right. path.
Okay, thank you.
No, that's good. We all have-
I used to be good with numbers, not tonight.
Oh, that's good, that's good. Gotta be on the same
It's just that
page.
you're not good with words.
All right, so a motion if someone makes it would be to reduce this bill by 20%, with the 20% coming off of the top end of the bill, right? Are we all in agreement? Yes. Okay, so can I get a motion to that effect?
Yes, so move.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
All right, all in favor? Aye, so you got 5-0. So Moses, you get some reduction, but not as much as you were hoping for.
Okay, just so I can be clear, you said it's off of the top tier. Could you just, I'm just trying, I have the bill, I know what the total number is, but am I understanding that it's not 20% off the total number, it's some other number that it's off of?
Yeah, Belle will send you a letter that details it, and then if you have any questions, she'll give you all a letter that'll have all the formulas in it and explain how the bill has been reduced.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't never see
all
it.
right, thanks.
Ask to have a email to that.
Okay,
Can I ask them?
yeah,
So, I'm just curious why we don't see the bill. You know, we see the usage, but I don't really have an idea of. what
our
they're-
binder always
No.
has the historical water usage, but doesn't have the actual bill that the people are
Oh, do
appealing.
you want that included with it? Is it?
Yeah,
It
they
would
just-
be
they
really
just come with-
helpful for me to have some context of, you know.
I can tell you how much the bill is if you need to know.
Yeah.
I think you, Jennifer, you used to include the bills. with
Bill
the-
emailed it to us.
2,400.
Oh, okay,
I asked for it.
okay.
Well, she emailed the number, but not the actual bill.
Right,
So we used to get the bills as part of our binders, but
yeah,
anymore.
It would be nice.
I think it'd be good to have that as well.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I didn't.
All right, here we are. At the end of that item for us, Moses, you'll hear
Okay.
from the office and they'll send you an amended bill.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
So we'll move on to item 7 on our agenda, amendment to BCPUD Resolution 719, conditionally appointing Georgia Woods to the position of General Manager / Executive Secretary, which amends a prior date of appointment to April the 1st. I think we previously said maybe March the 1st is supposed to be the date. Is that right?
Yeah,
Now we're changing it to April the 1st.
April Fool's Day, huh?
Yeah. Is there
Yes.
is there anything that you want to say about this, Georgia or Jennifer? Otherwise, I think the board's probably inclined to just grant the request.
No, just really appreciate that, this job is very hard and there's a lot to learn. And I appreciate your flexibility on this. And also, Jennifer's willingness to help train me.
All right.
Thank you.
So you need a vote on this, Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve the amendment to BCPUD Resolution 719, changing the date to April the 1st for Georgia?
I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0. Move on to item 8, update from the ad hoc committee regarding the BCPUD building. It's 270 Elm Road in Bolinas. Is there any thing to report from that ad hoc committee?
can give a brief update.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Just briefly that there was a meeting recently, kind of evaluating the initially the concept of the portable office and whether to, the 3-year term that we were looking at and whether a longer term was probably more realistic, and whether or not we should consider renting versus purchasing. Would there be a sort of repurposed use that could be made of a portable office at another facility? And then I think at least Andrew from the committee was interested in coming with staff to look at just sort of each of our sites to evaluate those possibilities. And so that's kind of the next step. And because it's just having the sunk cost of the portable unit, if we could avoid, is there an opportunity to make use of that building or purchase it and get that cost information?
So you're just beginning that process now, or?
Yeah,
Yep.
and I think we're gonna have to meet after Jennifer gets back from her.
Yeah, I'm gonna be gone the first 2 weeks of March.
Right.
But we could do, because we wanted to do a site assessment, and we could
Right.
do that, because Jennifer already knows all of those sites.
Mhm.
We could do that with one of the operators or
Mm.
chief operator.
Without Jennifer.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
think there's any,
Yeah,
I think even
fine.
actually as we envisioned it to begin with, Jennifer was already considering not being there.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, well, then I will propose some times that work.
As
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I
fine.
think they should work with you on this, because it's definitely a project that's down the road. So.
Yeah.
or imminent.
Yeah, Jenny,
I guess I'm wondering about clarification about the hearsay. And if we need to do a formal request or inquiry, or what have you thought about? Do we get a portable, or do we need to ask for a portable, or do we need to have our own portable, or do we need to look for another place to be? Just to be clear. I
Yeah.
think.
we've
Yeah,
talked about what to do
I-
about the hearsay. What,
Oh, I was not involved, so I shouldn't comment on this. but-
Andrew, what, do you remember what the latest?
I think we
Well,
We
from
don't
the
have an
staff
answer.
perspective, we've talked to Stuart and KO, and the issue would be needing to find another place
Yeah, it
to
would be a different space.
Yeah.
I think. Not here, but not in the
Yeah.
portable, is kind of the way we've been looking at it.
So say again,
The hearsay would, in our thinking now, would not move into the new portable with the BPUD staff.
so.
You need a new space.
We need to find our own space, so you weren't going to house us, okay?
Yeah,
The portable is really small, right? It's like not even that great for our own purposes.
Okay, so
For
it's
that
good
period,
to
it's
know
like,
that
on
we,
an interim basis.
and if we got a trailer or something, is it possible to have it here, or do we need to find another place, or?
I feel like we would help you search for space.
It
If
would
it could be
be,
here, if it could be like a rental in town trailer here.
in terms of using facilities, the bathroom or something like that,
yeah, I could see you having a small trailer space on our property. I'm just speaking for myself right now, but, I don't see why not. Anyway, it might be easier than trying to rent a space downtown or something else. What do you think about that, Georgia?
Well, I guess my only concern is that I mean, as far as I understand, the restroom is in the portable itself and it's a really tight space. You know, so it's just like the sort of practicality of people here having to use the restroom. Like, I don't think that that's a very practical approach.
You're not having a porta potty or anything.
No, so I mean, that was my understanding, that is there's a, you know, it is effectively a porta potty, like, but it's inside. The mobile is a giant porta potty.
Now, I guess I should ask this too as a follow-up then. Are we included in whatever new design is going to be for the facility? Is that something we're looking?
I don't think we're even there yet. Right?
Okay.
So that is a future discussion, but I think the temporary units that we're talking about is going to address our immediate concern, which is making sure our staff at BCPUD are safe and
I
So-
wonder if I could request we get a little note or something so that, or an email or something so that, because there are a lot of people now who have been stepping in to keep the hearsay going. So if maybe a notice could go to our 868 email so that everybody knows.
sorry, I just want to clarify, when you
Sure.
say we, you are representing hearsay.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking as a person who's connected with the hearsay, but you know how we are, I can't speak for anyone.
Everybody's a reporter.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, since I'm not really a representative, I'm just a reporter,
Yeah,
that it would be good to have something official, if that would be okay, so that we know, because if we are going to, if it's unclear whether we're part of the family, of the team here, whatever, and we're going to maybe eventually need to find our own space, it might not be a bad idea for us to go looking around and
Yeah.
see.
Well, I mean, I can say just my opinion on this. My sense is that the rebuilding of the rebuilding project is going to be a very long and drawn out process.
Mm,
I would say it's reasonable for a portable in a totally different space to be here. But I don't know, even, I think we should think about that more. Because of the issue with the restroom.
sure,
And then, but just long term, it's gonna be such a long period that I think it would behoove the hearsay folks to try to come up with, you know, what is their kind of alternative space. And probably having that, you know, be something that can accommodate them for the next, you know, for the foreseeable future. And if ultimately, you know, the building gets built and there is, you know, thought towards having, you know, rebuilding a hearsay space, like that could potentially happen, but it's so far into the future
yeah.
that it's just like, it doesn't really
I
even
get
make
that.
sense to think about it. You
And it
know, it's
wouldn't
like,
be the same little old funky space, so it'd be probably cost a lot more to rent space, I would guess.
we talked about.
yeah, I don't-
Yeah, we ever looking at it, yeah. All right, well, I
Okay.
think George is right. I think that for the foreseeable future, you probably need to identify your own space.
Okay,
Even though in the long run, in the big picture, a hearsay office could be included in the new building.
Would not be
But-
unreasonable. to
But
think
but
about
it's
including it.
several years down the road, so in the short run, have to find something,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Thanks.
All right, and is there anything else from the ad hoc committee then about? Okay, no.
No, just to reiterate, Andrew, you'll send out.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna move on to item 9, volunteer committee reports. The resident permit parking plan committee, we're gonna get an update from the committee regarding resident permit parking program implementation. I see we have Members of the committee on the screen, you've been very patient waiting for your turn.
Wake up, guys.
Bruce, turn your muted.
Oh, okay. I was clicking, but nothing happened. Hi,
Bruce
good
is gonna
evening,
start.
everyone. Nice to be with you. Sherry and I are going to be presenting this evening, and on behalf of Al Minville and Chuck McParland, who both live on Brighton Avenue. Sherry, of course, is a Wharf Road resident. We're happy to be talking about the permit parking and some new revelations. First of all, let me summarize by saying that the previous communications on this topic have been pretty thorough. All of our agendas, meeting minutes, presentations, and the like have been posted on the BPUD website, so it's not for lack of clarity and due diligence. We've got a lot of information out there. We last reported about this proposed ordinance, these proposed ordinances at your November meeting prior to the zoning hearing, which was on 11/16, November 16th. That's last year, 23. A summary of the planned ordinances were posted on the Civic Group website at that time. We've also done one presentation to the Civic Group that was more than a year ago in any case. Supervisor Rodoni described our work and the whole situation at his community meeting in November. And back in the spring of 2022, we polled the Brighton residents about the new ordinances to get their feedback. So we've been quite busy in that regard. We're pleased to report that the staff of the community development has informed us as of February 15th that the ordinances have cleared the Coastal Commission. We want to express our appreciation for the time, for their time getting this through. It's been quite a lot of work, and they've been very responsive to our questions during this entire process. The next steps are in the hands of the Department of Public Works, the entity that submitted the proposal to the Coastal Commission. Per the DPW staff, going forward, they are working on MOUs with administrative entities. Then the proposed ordinances have to go to the Board of Supervisors for review and approval. And finally, DPW will start working on the process to install updated signage. Our committee has requested review of the proposed ordinances and to discuss the wording and location of the signage. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
Yeah, hello, everybody. And we were very happy, as Bruce said, that the Coastal Commission let it pass through, which was great. And as Bruce mentioned, told you, I mean, he's essentially reading through from the report that we sent you and that you've probably, hopefully have seen. Subsequent to preparing this report this afternoon, Carrie Lando, who submitted on behalf of the Department of Public Works, did contact me to enlighten us, and she did copy BPUD on her email about the ordinances. What we have in our report was our guess as to what the ordinances would be like for the length limit for overnight parking. There are 3 ordinances. There's the parking permit ones on the Brighton residential side of Brighton. And then on the non-residential side, this as similar hours of 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. as measure X is. There's an ordinance that would limit the length of a vehicle that could park there. and overnight. And then on Wharf Road, there's a permit program that would be planned, although the exact location on the area that's designated, which is from the museum to the beach, the specific spots still need to be worked out. And the length limit is at all hours of the day. Well, what we were quoting in what you saw and what we sent was an ordinance that Supervisor Redoni gave us to look at last year. And we were saying, is this the ordinance? Is this the ordinance? You know, well, Carrie Lando said, no, that's not the ordinance. What we saw in 2019 was a sample and not what would be adopted. So what they're going to adopt is they have to adopt the essence of what was approved by the Coastal Commission. But they won't, which is what I just said, you know, the length limits and the permit program and where it would be in the hours. But how they're going to word it, what she did say was they're going to consolidate the Bolinas ordinances. They're going to streamline the ordinances, and then they're going to streamline the signage. So we had asked to be, well, we want to see what they're doing. And so she said, Carrie said, and there is a copy that BCPUD got of this email, that yes, they would share that at least the information on the signage. They would talk with us about it. So, and then the timeline is, I think in the report that we told you, we didn't know, you know, we had no final version of the ordinances to review. Well, we don't have that now either, but she said that they would probably get that to the Board of Supervisors late March or early April. So this is a little different than what we sent to you as a report, and it was information that I saw around 4 o'clock today. She sent it out in response to an email that I sent this morning. I said, can we get something we can tell the board? And she said, yes, we sent this. So, do you want to say anything about implementation, Bruce?
Sure. In terms of implementation of the permit program, it's going to require further discussions with DPW and with the residents that will be participating in this program. As I said, we've already polled the people on Brighton Avenue, but the residents of Wharf Road have not been brought up to speed quite as much. So that's going to take some additional work on our part. And the implementation is going to be somewhat nuanced. Both streets have quirky little things that are going on. Cul-de-sacs at one end. People that are, you know, there aren't many residents on what we call the non-residential or the west side of Brighton Avenue. But there are one or two, and they need to be taken into account. So in terms of the rollout, we'll work with BCPUD as closely as we can. Most likely that'll be Sherry and myself, just to make sure that nobody's being missed, and that we understand that they have a legitimate right for permits. There will no longer be any Measure X signage for overnight restrictions on Wharf Road, and that is in the commercial area. And what that's, of course, from like what will now be the Marine Lab, I guess, towards
No.
Marine Lab won't be included as the commercial.
No, it's from the museum to
From Buzz's surf shop.
No, not from Buzz's surf shop. Well, it's unclear. You can see it's unclear. What they said was from the that the restriction, the permits would be available and it's on the map. Past the museum, the first building, which would be the barn on the hillside, because they're referencing the museum, to the beach. Because that's where most of the residences are that don't have red zones.
Right.
So what you're pointing out, Bruce, is that there's a lot of discussion that needs to occur, including exactly where is this going to occur? Where are they going to,
Yeah.
where the lines are?
We need to work with DPW
Yes,
as well, because
yes,
there's,
exactly.
and where the signs will be posted. In
Right.
terms of Brighton, we'd like to see them continue to use the existing signs, not introduce anything more. However, well, Sherry will bring this up, but we do think that there needs to be maybe an overall in company sign somewhere near the tennis court. That's where they posted the fact that where the county uses the poster or bulletin board next to the tennis court. And so that's probably a good place for explanations of the signage program.
Well, one thing I would point out, and we just got this information from Carrie Lando, is they say they're going to streamline the ordinances.
Yeah.
And the signage. So we don't really know what that means. So before, when we were talking about leaving the signage as it is, I don't think they're going to do that, because they're going to put all the, she's saying, consolidating all the ordinances, and they may want to include ones that existed prior to this, the new ones that could be helpful. And it's for to make it easier for the sheriffs, deputies to enforce. So the signage is now even more in a mystery realm. We don't know how they're going to show the ordinances. We don't know what the signage is going to look like, where it will be exactly. So we really need to stay in touch with them, and we really need the help of BCPUD staff, or if one of the directors wants to help.
Carrie did mention that they thought they would be done with their work at the end of March, maybe the first part of April. But that's, then it's back in our court, so to speak. But we'd love to be able to work with them all the way along. They haven't offered that sort of.
No, I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, and in any case, yeah, the notion that the green zones in front of the market and the green zone in front of the Waterhouse building, those would remain. They haven't said they would remove them, but
No,
nonetheless.
they're not removing them. They've said it many times that they've kept them permanent. That's now whether the need is still there on Brighton. Hopefully it is, but that was part of the deal when they sunset Measure X. There is no Measure X any longer. All those signs are coming down. There will be no signage from Brighton on Wharf Road, from Brighton to the barn, basically, and to the bar. I don't know we don't know exactly the demarcation, obviously, because we're keep saying several things, but there's no overnight restriction in that area in this new world.
And one of the things that they are putting in the new ordinance is a length restriction. That's something that Supervisor Rodoni wanted, correct? I mean,
yeah, they've needed the length restriction to make it unenforceable, because the word auto is not in the California Vehicle Code, and it caused problems. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, if anyone has any questions, we can try and answer them, given what we know.
We were thrown a curveball this afternoon at 4 o'clock. So
I just want to say how much I admire you.
Yes.
For doing all of this and doing this on and on and on. And I know that the result will be we'll all be thrilled, but in the meantime, it must be, well, you're just expressing it so nicely that we don't hear the in your voice, but so thank you.
Yeah. sure.
I think,
So let me see if there's any questions from the board. Anybody have any?
One thing I would like to point out, and that is that, and Carrie Lando brought this up, we will be the only other place in Marin County that has its own parking ordinance. The other place is San Quentin Village.
Yes.
Imagine, they are a cul-de-sac. There's
For a
only one
permit.
way in and out, and it's the same with Bolinas. And I think that the Coastal Commission and other people have finally seen the light, that we have no way of dealing with the influx of visitors. So thereby parking restrictions.
yeah, it's a permit program. They couldn't find, they gave us a sample to look at, and it was San Quentin's for the day use, so that wasn't, much help.
All
No
right.
getaway cars.
All right, let me see if we have any comments or questions from the board. Otherwise, I think we appreciate your report and your tenacity, and we'll just wait for the next, meeting and see what the news is. It sounds like by the end of March,
Yes,
county should have done what it's gonna do, so you may not be ready to make a presentation at our March meeting. It might
Right.
be the April meeting. Is that right?
right,
Okay.
That's right.
probably.
Yeah, sounds like it. Anybody, Georgia, do you have any questions?
No, I just use the opportunity to introduce myself, Sherry.
Yeah, yeah.
And.
We'll be seeing you
also-
Monday, Georgia.
Yes, and yeah, just to let the board know, Bella
Right.
and I will be having a meeting with them on Monday. And I look forward to hearing even more details around, your efforts.
Yeah. It's been a moving target the entire time, so,
Good job, and thank you.
yeah, thank you. All right,
All right, thank you, good night.
Thank you. Enjoy your evening.
night.
Good night.
Next one would be resource recovery, and anything, Jennifer?
Yeah, we have some news there where the site really took a hit from the storms. And so we had to kind of make a kind of emergency decision with the fire department and Jeff Creek and the BPUD to basically we worked out a deal with West Marin Compost to bring a big box to the site where people can still bring green waste. And Kevin Lunny gave us a really good deal on this. I mean, he runs West Marin Compost, and so it's a way to be able to still be providing a green waste drop-off site for the community. But what's happening right now is then that's being transported. The waste is being taken to West Marin Compost. We have a price in effect of $30 a yard rather than 20 because we need that even then is barely covering the cost of the box. And just so everyone knows, West Marin Compost charges $40 a yard. So it's still a really good deal for the community. And basically just the site needs to dry out a little bit. We're going to be getting some rain the next week. So we'll see what happens, but the equipment needs to stay off it is the main thing and the main part of the site. Then just do get some more base rock there. And my best guess would be it's going to be weather dependent, probably a month before we can get everything remediated. But
All right,
yeah,
thank you.
Question.
Jenny has a question.
Are meetings gonna be resumed of the board? Is there still a board? Are we dissolved? or-
yeah. Well, we're working on that with the fire department as well. And so I'd like to we're looking at kind of restructuring, as you know, Mike Aiken is basically stepped aside, and Joe and Greg are doing a great job, but we're talking a lot with the fire department, looking at the finances and gonna sort of present a vision for looking forward, which is probably gonna also need to include an increase of the drop-off fee and or contributions from the participating agencies. To
Okay.
cover costs.
Because, I had thought we were gonna start back up in January
Yeah.
on the board, so those of us who were on the board, are we not on the board any longer?
But there's not, well, everyone, we just need to all make decisions about how to best move forward.
Okay, and if my kids resigned or is not doing it anymore, he did a bunch for a lot of years,
Yes,
and it
and he-
seems like there
I agree.
maybe should be some acknowledgement, public
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
acknowledgement of some kind.
yeah. No, for sure. That's definitely part of it.
Thank you,
Yeah,
okay.
I agree.
Okay.
All right. And anything from the Land Stewardship Committee?
Mercifully quiet. Yes, maybe to come. It's
Okay, not hearing anything. Other business, we're gonna go to the board committee reports. Finance Committee, we have an update on the audit for 22-23. Our financial statement for fiscal year 23-24, second quarter financial statement. And minutes of the February 13th Finance Committee meeting. And in our binders, we do have I guess
So second quarter financial statements.
Yeah.
And the minutes which have been approved by the finance committee, so those are our final versions of the minutes. The audit is expected to be completed within the next couple of weeks, so I think that'll be at the March meeting
Okay.
as an agenda item. And then what's in your binders are the Q2 financial statements, which we're happy to answer any questions, but just from an overall kind of big picture view, that revenue is good. It's as expected and on budget. Our interest income is well above budget, which is fantastic. As of the end of December, we have $43,000 in interest earned, whereas this time last year was 7,000. So, well above budget and well above recent poor performance. We're a little under budget on employee costs for administrative, which is because the assistant general manager position is budgeted in, but hasn't been hired, so we're running under budget there. We do have had an increase in our insurance costs for liability insurance premium. That's means that we're over budget on insurance this year, so I'm going to be adjusting for that in the upcoming budget. And our power costs are also running over budget. We have, as I've said, an inverter down at the treatment plant and having such difficulty arranging for a commercial service provider. Have a lead on another one. And so we're trying to get that addressed as soon as we can. But as a result, we're going to be, we're already just below 100% of budget on power. It's a couple of things. It's also the big rate increases. The PG&E rate increases have been really significant. So it's a combination of those two things. But those are the really high level things that I thought were worth pointing out, but also happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have questions about the financial statement? None, all right. We don't have to approve the minutes, do we, of the finance committee?
No, the
did.
the
You
finance
did it?
committee.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, then, move on to legal committee. I don't think we have anything. Mesa septic flood control and roads.
I haven't heard anything from anybody.
Okay,
I was thinking of the gentleman who was asking about, who was asking about
the drainage, yeah,
seemed like a Mesa septic flood control roads.
yeah,
Question. Good night, you.
Good night, thanks, guys.
yeah.
See you.
I mean, now that we've got rain and I walk all the time and I'm remembering what Louis would do, which is walk around and
Yeah,
talk to neighbors and fix things, and I realized that the committee doesn't have time to do all that, but I think it's really important. I see ditches getting more and more filled in.
yeah.
Well, you can call and report it, because Andrew does go around and has done a lot of that work, but if you're seeing a specific area, let us know.
And the opposite, I've seen Ned Hoke out there shoveling away, and his ditch is beautiful and well tended and deep, and I was like, that's fabulous. I almost, what it made me think of is, it might be nice, I don't know how to do it in the pipeline or in the hearsay or something, but to highlight people who are doing the kind of maintenance that communities need when they don't have a central authority who's doing that maintenance. And he was out there working super hard and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So I'd like us to have in mind, how can we build more of the behavior that we want instead of punishing the behavior we don't want? And I'm not saying we're doing that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, how can we shine a light on that? It's like Jenny's gratitude spotlight that she does on the hearsay like that. So,
Well, we could put, sometimes when the bill comes, we get our little BPUD newsletters,
yeah.
and then we have a little box
Yeah.
that, here's what you can do to help
Right.
drainage in your neighborhood or
And
something.
if and if you want consult, this is how
Yeah.
to get it, because people don't think about it until all of a sudden it rains and then they think
Yeah.
about it because the road is flooding, but it makes a big difference if those ditches.
Didn't we buy a culvert cleaner or something? It's like a
Yeah.
vacuum cleaner,
Yeah, no, I mean, we've been out clearing a lot of culverts.
right?
Yeah.
So maybe we could
Yeah.
make it known to, the people
That's available now.
that we have that available. If they've got some clogged up culverts that they need some help with, let us know and we can send somebody from the staff with the cleaner.
And
something.
sometimes we can't help because if people have installed culverts that are too long. Basically, if anything's more than about 15 or 20 feet, then, some people have put culverts together and then our equipment can't deal
Oh,
with it.
okay, well then.
But I mean, we explain that to people, but we also we respond to requests for culvert cleaning. Yeah, but on Overlook there, that's a complicated one with the
Yeah.
county. We brought the county there several times.
It just was,
Yeah.
it reminded me that I had meant to bring that up.
Yeah. All right, well, maybe the next newsletter, we can just put a box, you need some help with drainage or
Mhm.
culvert cleaning, let us know.
Sticking in the hearsay is always a good idea too.
Yeah.
Because I think people they pull it open, if the bills only go out quarterly,
Yeah,
and the hearsay goes out 3 times a week. So.
yeah, good point, okay.
I like
I
the
think
idea
doing both.
of highlighting
Yeah.
specific customers also. I really like that idea.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I think we have to be, I think we'd have to be somewhat cautious about it, maybe. I mean, I'd like to think it through, to make sure that it's not somebody who's feeling embarrassed or blah, blah, I don't know.
Yeah, well, you could ask the person if they would,
Yeah.
if they'd mind.
Because
Yeah,
setting a good example is, well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
next time you see Ned out there shoveling, just grab a photo. Snap a photo.
I'm like,
That's gonna be mine.
taking photos, but yeah.
all right, water and sewer operations.
Actually, there's another idea, somebody we could highlight. I was talking with Andrew about the whole flume, water meter, smart water meters. And I was asking if anybody in town has installed one and could come kind of give testimony at a meeting on how effective they are, what they've noticed. And he told me about a community member that with his family, they sort of compete with each other on who can use the least amount of water. And during the drought, they got it really far down. I think hearing stories like that would actually be really helpful for customers. So that may be another profile for the pipeline or the hearsay.
Keeping the flume thing out
Yeah.
prominently pinged on a really regular basis, because
Yeah.
I know about it and I forget about it.
Yeah,
And I just bought one, so.
Yeah.
And people buy them after they have enormous water bills.
Right.
yeah,
You can save yourself the water. bill.
Prophylactic
Yeah,
fluing.
pay for itself.
Pay for itself.
Yeah.
That could be the pipeline
There we go.
phrase of the
Yeah.
quarter.
All right, go to, now on personnel, I think that, didn't we just see a
Yeah. we've
email
got-
about an MOU?
Yeah.
Amendment, so what happens is once a year, the employees of the district propose changes to the memorandum of understanding they have, mostly it's adjustments of benefits and salary and things like that, so it comes to the personnel committee, we'll review it with the general manager, and then we formulate a response. And usually gets negotiated, and then would bring the recommendation to the board to approve it, so that process is just starting.
It's usually pretty quick. Too.
What's that?
It's usually a quick process.
It is, yeah, and they're usually just not unreasonable requests at all,
Yeah.
so. Okay, that takes us to minutes of the January 17th regular board meeting, which are in the binder. And there's also the minutes of the January 29th special board meeting. So why don't we deal with the January 17th meeting? Are there any proposed changes or corrections to those minutes? And if not,
I didn't have any.
No,
we do,
I read
no?
through it.
Gotta get a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye, 5-0. And let's go on to the special meeting of the board on January the 29th.
Those were easy minutes.
So.
And I wasn't there.
Okay, that's true.
I move
So
to
can I
approve
get a
the
motion to?
minutes of the special meeting.
They don't show much.
Yep.
So can I get a motion to approve the minutes as they are?
I so move.
Okay, so second,
Second,
thank you, all in favor?
aye.
Aye, 4-0 on the abstention, I gather.
Yes.
Okay, then we have the warrants. Anybody have questions about the warrants?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
So let's see, is it, I don't even know how to pronounce it, Brelge and Race?
Oh, yeah, Royalty and race, yeah.
So
Laboratories.
there's a memo, October 2024. I'm assuming that's 2023. But it was 2,127, and I'm just wonder, you know, what is that and how is it different than what they were doing in September? It's a nominal difference of 2,036.
That's our lab testing. And so every month we have a bill around this amount.
Okay.
That's what I was saying is gonna go up by like 20 grand for the groundwater monitoring, enhanced groundwater monitoring. And so our monthly can anywhere, but generally around 2,000, sometimes under, sometimes a little bit over, but monthly costs that we incur for water and sewer sampling.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
I was
No.
wondering what the Pacific Slope Nymph Road Cypress is for $900. Do we have property on Nymph Road?
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Right
just
here.
over here.
Oh, just
There,
there, okay.
yeah, there was a branch or something. I mean, they kind of came in and did a little emergency project because we had one of the trees over here was threatening Nymph Road. Just
Okay.
right over here.
Okay, good.
Any other?
Yeah, I had a question. Mountain View Services is nominal, but who are they? And consultation?
So that's the name of the company that the technician that services is the expert on our water filters. And he's out of Colorado, but he comes, that's really nominal, but he comes once a year, generally do a site visit and troubleshoots all the filters and does training for the guys. And so that's usually about a $1,500 to $3,000 cost, 1,500 to 3,000. This I think was just for a part we needed to install on one of the filters, and he purchased it for us and sent it to us.
All right, any other questions?
Last question.
Sure.
SUSP for contract services in January.
That's our
3,000.
grade 5 wastewater treatment operator that
Oh, yeah.
we had to hire pending STU certification.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
How's that working out?
Well,
He
Yeah.
just,
yeah.
oh, you mean, how is the consultant working now?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. But also, Stu just received his certificate.
Oh.
Yeah, but that may not be sufficient. We don't know. I mean, we're required to have a grade 2 operator or operator with equivalent experience. And so we're going to approach the regional board with, and we're gonna have our contract operator who strongly feels he can support a recommendation that Stu has that equivalent experience. And so we will be pursuing that to be able to then have them agree that Stu's certification is adequate. Yeah.
So that would be a savings of 3,000 a month.
Yeah, we had to, this has been
Great.
in place, there's a regulatory requirement.
Mm.
Any other questions about the warrants? Otherwise, can I get a motion to approve them?
I so moved.
And I was second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I had one thought, which is, Jennifer, is this a year in which any of the seats on this board come up for renewal, or is it next year?
Yeah, it's this year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm up for renewal in November. I mean, I'm up for.
I think
Term
yeah.
expires in-
Yeah, my term expires in November. Thank you.
Okay, so that's one seat. Is there another seat too? I don't think
Mine.
it's yours.
Yeah.
Okay, and so normally what we do is we put a notice in the hearsay and wherever, giving people an advance notice that if you want to run for the office, you have to sign up. I believe it's in July, as I recall.
August, I think. I could get those
I
deadlines
think
though.
Yeah.
August too.
So since our next meeting is in March, why don't we at least put something in our agenda or a notice so that the public give them a couple of months' notice that, you know, if they're interested, the sign up period is X to Y. I just thought I'd pick that up.
Yeah, they have to file Form 700 too. right?
What's that?
They have to file Form 700.
That's what I mean, yeah, so you want to give
Yeah.
people advance notice that if you want to, if you're interested,
I do
you need
too.
to do it.
Yeah, but it's
All right, and then schedule our next meeting,
the 20th.
March,
Yeah, the third Wednesday is March 20th.
and you will be here?
I will.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. All right,
I had a request to possibly move the July meeting if that's at all possible, or if it's too early to talk about that, I can bring it up again in a month or two.
yeah, it might be a little early.
Okay, a little early,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And I may be gone for work from June. I probably hit the July, from July through September. But that's not 100% sure, but
But miss the summer meetings, you
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, okay,
yeah, I mean, I would be able to zoom in,
Do
but I
the
would
Zoom.
not
Okay,
be here in person.
And I'm out June.
and you're out when?
June, I think my
Sounds
son
like we'll have a
son
program.
graduates that
I'll be
day.
here June.
But you will be here in June.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so, yeah, as long as we know we have a quorum anyway, right? Okay. All right, and with that, I think this meeting is adjourned, huh?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good.
Thank you.
All right, Chris.
All right.
Stay as always.